Clerk Konecki, please call the roll.
Trustee Salella?
Here.
Trustee Corkery? Trustee Kozar?
Here.
Trustee Kumar?
Here.
Trustee Murphy? Here. Trustee Patrick?
Here.
President Kazone?
Here. And please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will go to our discussion item, which is meeting dates and procedures for the Committee of the Whole. And for this, I'll turn it over to Manager Harline.
All right, I'll do a short intro, and then I'm going to give some time to our attorney, Melissa Wolf, who's prepared a possible change to our code to give more structure on a lengthy or on a permanent basis to a committee of the whole. I sent you a memo. Basically, the idea we've gone into what the usefulness of a committee of the whole structure is to have a chance to have discussion about a small number of items with a little bit more depth, especially things that are technical, like a TIF district or the budget or potential environmental policy. And that's not exactly what I was going to, what am I trying to say? Trustee Kumar, the climate change.
Climate change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, my brain was trying to catch up with my mouth. So those are some topics that we could do, and the St. Charles Commercial Corridor is one thing that we would like to probably TIF would be a good thing for if we had a meeting on September 12th. So this meeting is directly following up on the 6-1 vote to hold a special meeting. The goal is to move to establish regular committee of the whole meetings. So the decision steps that need to happen is what is the frequency, and I'm suggesting that we go to once per month with the option of canceling when there is no need, and then meeting time. It probably would be better to get started at 6 because we're going to have to rush a little bit to get a 30-minute meeting in. But that's, again, up to you guys. And I would continue to hold the meetings in this room unless we can come up with a way to broadcast comfortably from the Committee of the Whole room. The advantage of meeting the Committee of the Whole room is that it gets us in a physical setting where it's easier for everybody to see each other, to have discussion about these topics. And then there is in this meeting, and there will always have to be, make it sound like it's a bad thing, we always are required to have a public input section, which is another reason to have an hour-long meeting rather than a half an hour long meeting. Broadcast I covered in the where section, and the agenda. So the process for setting up the agenda is clearly written out in the draft ordinance, and so that basically the agenda for the Committee of the Whole would be prepared by the village manager in consultation with the village president, the village board by motion, and a majority at a prior village board meeting may add an agenda item to that agenda. So that's specifically how we would get an agenda for a Committee of the Whole meeting, and the rest is standard language for the Open Meetings Act. So I have two specific items recommended, and then without further ado, if you don't mind, President Kazone, I'd hand the baton over to Melissa as well to talk about the specific ordinance.
Thank you very much. Well, Manager covered a lot of what is being proposed here, but what's in front of you is some proposed revisions to the village's code to implement the specific regulations regarding the Committee of the Whole, or just codify those provisions related to the Committee of the Whole. They're not really so much regulations, but it establishes the Committee of the Whole, identifies the purpose to be a less formal environment of the board as a whole, and allows for more informal discussions. The meeting place is set forth and established as the village hall being the regular meeting place unless otherwise identified, in the Open Meetings Act. It sets forth the meeting dates, and of course, we're going to want to get the input from the board tonight as to what the appropriate meeting date and time should be if the board wants to move forward with regular committee of the whole meetings. The board does also have the option to establish special committee of the whole meetings. It doesn't have to be a regular agenda item, but you know what, like the manager said, it might be a good idea to have it regularly set and then canceled if not necessary. The proposed ordinance sets the time and date at 6 o'clock and on the second Monday of each month prior to the board meeting. So in the event there was a canceled board meeting because of a holiday or something like that, that committee of the whole meeting would be canceled as well. The agenda, it establishes how the agenda is set, and that would be via the, it would be prepared by the village manager in consultation with the village president. But these provisions also allow for the village board to actually put an item on the agenda by a vote, a majority vote of the village board at the regular meeting of the board prior to that committee of the whole meeting. So it does establish a process to allow for the board to add items. It establishes that the chairman is the village president, which is standard, and then it also establishes that Robert's Rules of Order are applicable. Even though it is a less formal environment, there are certain provisions in Robert's Rules related to committees and commissions, and those are what are applicable in this instance. There were also certain sections of the village code that would need to be revised, and it only related to the village clerk's position because there was just probably an outdated reference to the village clerk not attending a committee of the whole meeting. But so that that language is stricken, and it clarifies that the village clerk does attend those meetings. So that was really the only function of that revision. So today we'll want, the board's consensus on what your desires are with respect to handling these. And if we do implement regular meetings of the committee of the whole, there will be publication notice that is required to establish those regular meetings. So we'll do that if that's the direction.
And it would be the same notice that we do for our regular meetings, correct?
You would have the same regular 48-hour Open Meetings Act notice, but if you're establishing regular meetings of a committee of the whole, we're going to have to do a publication in a newspaper that establishes, how every year this board sets forth its regular meeting dates, and you approve those and those get published. We're going to do that as well if that's what happens with the committee of the whole.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any discussion? Trustee Kumar.
A couple of questions with the ordinance. So if two trustees talk to the manager, they can put something on the agenda. Am I correct?
No. Yes.
That's to set a meeting date. So I believe you're looking at provision D regarding meeting dates. And so if you wanted to call a special meeting of the committee of the whole, this allows two trustees to give the village president or the village manager notice that you would like
want
to
to call
that special meeting of the, right.
Now,
And
for the agenda items, how do we do that?
That either, yeah, go ahead.
Does that also have to, is that a similar process?
So to give notice to the village, in that instance, if a special meeting was called, you'd be giving notice to either the village president or the village manager, and the village manager would input, or the village, in consultation with the village president, would identify the agenda item that would be on that special meeting.
Okay, just,
So, going off Deepa's questions, we've had issues in the past about getting things on the agenda, so I want to be very clear on this. According to our ordinance, if you're going to get something on the agenda here, it has to be delivered to the clerk. So I'm suggesting that we don't have this, I know it doesn't say delivered to the clerk. It's either to the village manager or the village president, and I think that notice should be sufficient and spelled out if it's an email from our
Sure.
from our regular trustee emails. The confusion in the past was delivered, does that mean physical or not? And if you can't get a hold of the clerk and you try, you're subject to the clerk filing a police report and contacting the state's attorney, which is what she did last time. So I want to avoid any bit of that. A simple email to the manager and/or the president should be sufficient. And if 2 or more trustees want to either have a special committee of the whole or put an agenda item, the email should be sufficient for that. You follow me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I do want to be careful about our Open Meetings Act issues and conversations between a majority of a quorum regarding village business. So this is why 2 trustees is the number that's established to be able to implement that provision. So that number is still compliant with the Open Meetings Act, and so it would not involve a conversation of a majority of a quorum. So this is not 2 or more, this is 2 trustees. So I'd like to, talk about possibly keeping it that way so that we're not inadvertently violating any Open Meetings Act provisions. So if one trustee wants to call a special meeting, the appropriate procedure would be to coordinate with another trustee and only one other trustee to get the call of that meeting. And then that would be sufficient to be able to, process that request and have that meeting called. I agree that clarification regarding like the written email communication is sufficient. And that language can be added, no problem. But with respect to how many trustees need to request the meeting, it should be 2.
So it's just 2, and we just have to be cognizant if we're going to be, not to be sending out a broadcast type email.
That's right.
Requesting it. So-
And like we normally do, just blind CC if you want the rest of the board to know, just blind CC them and just say, do not respond.
Yeah, I take issue with the blind CC because, effectively, that's what you're doing. If you're calling it a blind CC or not, you're sending a message out to all the other trustees. It's just kind of a backdoor way of kind of being sneaky around the Open Meetings Act.
Not really, because you're sending it, it's not a discussion, it's just a notice.
Yeah, what the
There's a-
blind CC, what it does is exactly what the president was saying. It eliminates the possibility of an interactive communication on it, but it is providing notice. But, what will end up happening is if 2 trustees are involved in the request, a meeting will be called, and then all the other trustees will be
And I think
notified of
that's
that as
sufficient.
well.
And I think the rest of the board can be cognizant of the fact.
The advantage of the blind CC, and it's the original BCC, blind carbon copy,
Right.
which is one of the options in most emails, is that you can't hit a return respond all. You have to make a conscious effort to send it to more than to a majority of the board of trustees. It's obviously not really a blind CC if you just told everybody you did it,
Right.
but technically the space on your computer says BCC, and it also means that I see it as an act of transparency that you're not sending it to a bunch of people and not telling you who you're sending it to. You always, it's always a possibility that somebody's doing that, but at least when I do it, that's like I'm letting you know that I'm sending it out to everybody, and it's something that somebody's going to have to make a conscious effort to add everybody's name back to respond in case, so you avoid that step falling into that inadvertently. I think, and the other thing is, so just there are some stop gaps here because in crazy circumstances, if somebody, this is a 72-hour turnaround on a special meeting, be cognizant of the fact that you're going to have, you're going to need a good reason to do it because you can always adjourn a meeting with 4 votes. So, it's just, you gotta have, you can't just call it because, just use good common sense with this. Okay. If anyone's worried about that, somebody starting to, there are ways to, there are stop gaps for these things. So, that is just this empowers the board to be able to call a meeting. And that's it.
I don't really see it getting abused. I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
There is also, prior to, in that same provision, this also allows the village president to be able to call a committee of the whole meeting. So I think the first step would be for the trustee that desires a meeting to communicate with the village president. This is a provision that allows, if there is a conflict between the desires of two trustees to hold a meeting and the village president to hold a meeting, then two trustees requesting that meeting would allow for that meeting to go forward. So, the first step would be contact the village president, who can decide and coordinate the call of a special committee of the whole meeting. The next step would be, if there is some pushback on that, this allows the trustees, with one trustee with another, to be able to call that meeting within that time frame.
Regarding the meeting itself, if we do not have a quorum, we can still have the meeting, correct? Because it's discussion only?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Right.
Yeah,
Just so everyone's aware of that.
Right.
Okay. Trustee Kumar?
One other question about if we don't get done with the discussion, are we able to extend the meeting in some way or form that's a regular way?
yeah, so I think
Because it's right back to back with our other meeting, so we gotta stop because we gotta
Right.
go into a meeting.
Right, I mean, you
So-
are allowed to start the regular meeting later, but, as long as you don't start your regular meeting before the scheduled time at 7 o'clock, but you may not want to do that. So
It's-
if matters carry over, you could decide at that committee of the whole meeting to continue to the next committee of the whole meeting, or give direction on scheduling another special committee of the whole meeting.
Okay,
if
I mean,
necessary.
that's my concern. Some topics may go on for a while, some topics will be done in that time, or if we have multiple topics scheduled, we might not get to some of them.
Yeah.
So it's all of the above with that discussion. So basically, we would set another meeting possibly at the end of that meeting and then go on. Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on this? You want to get a consensus? We need consensus, or just going to work off of yours?
Yeah, if we could just get a general consensus that what's written here is appropriate to present to the board, including that clarification regarding the written notice via email is sufficient to notify of the call of a special meeting.
Okay.
And if the board is good with that, we'll get it prepared in ordinance format for approval at the next meeting. The only other clarification that I think we need is this going to be regular meetings of the committee of the whole? Will they be that second Monday of the month at 6 o'clock? Would you like us to start to prepare that publication notice so that it is a regular committee of the whole meeting taking place once a month?
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Korkanecki, let's get a consensus on that?
Okay, what is the first part of the consensus? Are we talking about this, the
So
new code
I guess the
section?
first consensus will be, do we want to set regular meetings of the committee of the whole on that first Monday, or the second Monday of each month at 6 o'clock?
Okay, that I got. I thought there was one before that. you had
I
mentioned.
did say it in a different order.
Okay, the
Let's do
same
that
thing
one
though.
first.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, got it, thank you. Okay, that's trustee Patrick,
Yes.
trustee Corkery,
Yes.
trustee Solella,
Yes.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
No.
trustee Kozar,
Yes.
president Kazone.
Yes. Okay, and then we want a consensus on,
The new, the code revisions that were
Okay.
presented with the clarifications regarding email.
okay,
Oh, yes, go ahead, yes.
Okay, trustee Kozar,
Yes.
trustee Murphy,
No.
trustee Kumar,
Yes.
trustee Solella,
Yes.
trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Patrick,
Yes.
president Kazone.
yes. Okay,
And then Manager Harline, did you have some other questions that you had regarding maybe some topics to be discussed, or?
Yeah, so we had one of the things that really needs to stay on track to get the St. Charles Commercial Corridor Redevelopment TIF approved as soon as possible in 2023. It would be useful to bring a topic before the board at a committee of the whole meeting on September 12th, and then by October, by that time we will have if we proceed, we will have a regular procedure for adding items to the agenda, but we're also suggesting that October 10 be the introduction to the 2023 budget process. So I guess that would be my plan, to put that together for the next agenda, unless you guys want to make a different motion.
I'm not making a different motion, I'm adding a motion.
Okay.
Possibly to that St. Charles corridor thing. I would like to revisit and look at our mixed codes and what is allowable building on certain mixed T codes.
Okay.
And
Just the particular MXD?
MXT, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Trustee Kozar.
I'd like to add to Manager Harline's TIF discussion and just kind of make it broader. I'd like the board to just have a discussion about all our TIF districts and just kind of lay them out. Where exactly are they? When do they expire? What kind of money has been allocated in those TIF districts? Just a general summary so that we
Okay.
can have a
We can do a lot of that in
Broad
report
stroke.
form.
Yeah, I was gonna
but
say,
then
we could,
follow
yeah, I
up.
think, yeah.
But then obviously follow up for whatever we don't include, but we'll start that with a report, and then yeah, so absolutely, we can do that together,
Great.
plus the MXT codes, where they sit now.
Okay. Okay, any other, Trustee Kozar?
I'd like to see in one of these committee of the holes soon, coming up a broad stroke discussion about our rec center and how
Okay.
that's all coming together. The various components of it, deadlines that we're meeting. You know, for example, we got this contract for a construction manager on Friday. Expected to vote on it today with little discussion. That's something that we should be talking about in committee of the whole.
Okay.
As an example, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's other things that we're gonna have to be dealing with, so
Right.
we wanna make some sort of timeline, time frame, so we know what to expect and what questions we can ask.
Yeah. Then we got to there were some discussions before that with our attorney and their attorney, but yes, you didn't, as a board, you didn't see it until then.
Right.
And, yeah, I understand.
Okay, anyone else? Trustee Murphy.
Yes, I'd like to see an agenda item to more clearly define the term entertainment.
Which is that?
An agenda item on one of the meetings we talked about getting together relatively soon after we voted on the entertainment ordinance. We were going to more clearly define the definition of entertainment.
Okay. Let's see how much time we have. Trustee Corker.
Just probably not for the next committee of the whole meeting, but down the line, I'd like to see climate change and affordable housing both be made items of discussion. I've talked to several residents who'd also like to have more discussion about how we can make those happen in Villa Park, take action on those issues.
Climate change and affordable housing as two separate topics.
Yes, not at the same time.
Okay.
Although they do overlap.
Okay. Okay, anyone else? Okay, do we have any public comments on committee of the whole meetings? Okay, seeing none, get a motion to adjourn. Trustee Corkery, do we have a second? Trustee Kumar?
I'll second that.
Okay, move to voice vote. Yes. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we will close that special meeting, and then our regular meeting will start in about 5 minutes. I'd like to bring this meeting to order. The Village of Villa Park, Board of Trustees, August 8th, 2022. Clerk Kornecki, please call the roll.
Trustee Salella?
Here.
Trustee Corkery?
Here.
Trustee Kozar?
Here.
Trustee Kumar?
Here.
Trustee Murphy?
Here.
Trustee Patrick?
Here.
President Kazan?
Here, and please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will you please remain standing? Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this evening. May we have meaningful discussions that will help us to assist our village in these trying times. Help us to make those decisions that will affect the staff, directors, and residents of Villa Park. Guide us through these challenges we face, and may we approach each other with respect and kindness as one group. In your name, amen.
Amen.
Okay, item number 3 is public comments on agenda items. And I would imagine we have a fair amount of people here that are going to speak. Couple of things tonight. As usual, we asked you to keep the 3 minutes. Any comments? We will hold to that 3 minutes. So if Clerk Kornecki says your 3 minutes are up, you've got to stop. We've got a lot of people here. And second, if you're basically going to say the same thing as someone else, just kind of say, you know, I agree with this person, and I would like to just comment on that, so we can get everybody out of here at a good time. So, okay, Clerk Kornecki, do you have anyone signed, or is everyone?
No, they were signing up
Okay.
up there, yeah.
Okay, we will start with public comments.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, I have Paul Burkema?
Bukema.
Bukema, thank you.
My handwriting is neither, you probably be able to read it. Good evening. Thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Paul Bukema, and I represent Untitled Chapter. And I was going to speak regarding the project at 27 Park. As you know, there have been many concerns regarding this project over the course of the many months and hearings that we've had. And the vote tonight is something we hope we know that you take very seriously. And we ask that if there's major modifications that are made to the plans subject to the draft ordinance that's before you, that if those plans are going to change, that the plans be resubmitted to planning and zoning. For instance, there may be things that they would be able to comply with if they make major modifications to meet the requirements regarding pervious and impervious surfaces that are in the ordinance. Second, if the project were to move forward, as staff knows, the Stormwater Chapel is requesting, as the owner of the property adjacent to the east, that a fence be inserted along the eastern side of the development to keep pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk for safety reasons. Fences between commercial and residential uses are good planning. A fence on the petitioner's property is further justified if a variance is granted from the landscaping, and I should say to control any air-blown waste, because the petitioner will be removing the garbage container, the toter, or the roll-off, whatever it may be, from a garage and then unloading it into a garbage truck. So there could be blowing waste. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The next person is Terry Rodriguez.
Good evening. My name is Terry Rodriguez. I'm a new homeowner here in Villa Park. Happy to be here. And one of the big reasons I moved here was the historical characteristics of the town, the buildings that you have here. They're very eye-catching. And the idea of a modern structure, I feel, will take away from the traditional buildings that are timeless and will continue to look good for decades. The new style of the modern structures use a variety of building materials with both horizontal and vertical vinyl sidings, multiple colors, They look like patchwork quilts, very much like this building Mr. Ross has built. And although they look good today in the modern aspect of this style, it soon will become very dated and look like an eyesore once the next new modern style comes along. And then there'll be other changes that you're going to compete with. Using traditional earth tone colors and a traditional horizontal pattern vinyl sidings will continue to look good for many years to come and blend into the character of the surrounding neighborhood. The proposed structure is too tall for this particular site, which is surrounded by 1- and 2-story buildings, as it would be out of character with the buildings of the neighborhood. Villa Park has such a historical charm, and I'd hate to see that ruined by modern architectural buildings. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next person is Ed Rodriguez.
Good evening. My name's Ed Rodriguez. I am a new resident to Villa Park from California. July 4th, I noticed substantial water in my backyard, and it had been the second or third time, because we moved in the spring, that I had noticed it. I thought maybe I had a landscaping problem. I went to 2 of my neighbors, and I asked them if there was something wrong with my backyard. And they basically said no, that there is a bit of a flooding problem in Villa Park. Unfortunately, we had already purchased the home in Villa Park before we found out about these flooding issues and stormwater sewer issues. It is important when the village looks at the new developments that the village codes be carefully considered. The code relating to 70% impervious surface is an important code that should be adhered to in the light of the fact the village's stormwater system is already taxed. We need to prevent future problems and mitigate current problems with flooding and stormwater sewers that are already compromised. In summary, please take a long-term perspective and simply vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Deb Myers.
Good evening. I live right across the street at 346 South Princeton from the proposed apartment building. I've asked each of you previously to vote no on this proposal, and I'm asking so again this evening. We've been blessed with 2 new establishments on Park Avenue that are bringing much wanted attention and business to our area, and we want them to flourish. As you well know, there is limited parking in front of their building, and you also know of the generosity afforded by Sterling Funeral Home. The generous offer from Sterling also comes into play with the multiple events that take place at the gazebo. As you well know, Summerfest, Joyful Traditions, the concerts in the park, 5K events, and so on also use these lots, and we certainly do not want those life-giving and fun-filled events to relocate from the Prairie Path and the gazebo. The traffic and parking issues that come with these events is temporary minor inconvenience. That said, traffic on a regular basis is becoming an increasing problem as folks, especially while schools are in session, are using Princeton Avenue as an alternative to Ardmore. Right now, it is nearly impossible to turn left going north on Ardmore from Park. If you are able to make that turn, you are very often encounter pedestrian traffic or bike traffic coming from the Prairie Path within a few feet of that intersection. Entering Ardmore from Highland is also an issue due to traffic and obstructed views. For those reasons, the residents of Princeton, as well as vehicles heading east on Park, are turning down our street and heading either to Washington or Madison in the 4-way stops at those intersections. In addition to the traffic itself, the speed of the vehicles traveling is also becoming a hazard and safety issue for pedestrian traffic and the residents of Princeton. Adding a 4-story, 24-unit apartment building that will have an additional 38-plus cars in this congested area is only going to add to the already existing parking, traffic, and safety issues. As it happens, my cousin, Dr. David Amos, is a member of the City and Regional Planning Department, College of Architectural and Environmental Design of Cal Poly during the day, and a planning YouTuber by night on his YouTube channel, City Beautiful. With an audience of 350,000 subscribers and 30 million channel-wide views, he is well known and respected within the worldwide city planning community. Ms. Murphy, when we met with you a couple of weeks ago, you indicated a desire to hire a part-time.
30 seconds.
Mr. Corkery, you also had heard your concerns about density and global warming. With 2 other multifamily apartment complexes being built, we feel that this is not, will not help our village to prosper and grow, but please try your very best to maintain the uniqueness of our village and the integrity and serenity of the Prairie Path that we all know and love. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice.
Okay, next person, Jeannie Nicholson.
What I'm going to talk about tonight, I did want to talk about the gazebo, but I'm going to talk about alley safety. The alley does not need any additional traffic. The East Ardmore Avenue end of the alley's pavement extends right up to the building and measures 12.83 feet in width. Sticking out onto the alley, the building has an air conditioning unit out the window and 3 entrance-exit doors. The front of the building butts right up to Ardmore's sidewalk, and with its entrance and door next to the alley. A true hazard for those exiting or entering the building. Vision for cars, the driver of the cars exiting the alley is extremely hazardous. In addition to all of this, the liquor store's parking lot also butts up to the alley. Customers enter the parking lot mostly from Ardmore Avenue and sometimes from the alley. When the customers exit, they mostly exit via the alley. It is hazardous for traffic entering or exiting the alley, especially pedestrians walking down the sidewalk. The recently added stop sign was accidentally smashed down by a motorist. The West Princeton Avenue end of the alley has a stop sign that's not always visible due to poles along the north side of the alley obstructing its visibility. There are around 10 poles running down the north side of the alley. Some are partially on the alley's surface. The alley's width is 12 feet. The 2 apartment buildings on Highland Avenue equal 12 units with parking in rear off of the alley. Renters have told me that it's difficult parking due to a small width of the alley. Sturley Funeral Home has 2 parking lots on both the north and south end side of the alley. They can be entered or exited from Park Boulevard or Highland Avenue or the alley. I see cars entering or exiting Sturley Funeral Home's parking lot onto or off of Highland Avenue. Princeton Avenue has 45 houses on its block and around 50 kids. A side entrance exit for the cars onto Princeton Avenue is a hazard for pedestrians and cars.
30 seconds.
Am I over?
No, 30
Yes,
seconds, Jeannie.
Headlights at night shine in the bedrooms of 4 homes on Princeton. We'd have students and parents walking to and from school. Grammar school is 1.5 blocks north of us, and south is junior high. Well, anyway, people walking dogs and everything. I've met so many. And when school is again in full swing, I'd like to see a new traffic study done. There's more traffic, foot and motor than you can imagine. Oh, God.
Thanks, Jeannie.
Susan Musarino.
I am respectfully asking that the board reject the proposed development at 27 West Park Boulevard. First, Code 4.4.3 allows for up to 70% impervious surfaces. The developer's variance request for this code does not qualify for hardship and therefore should not be granted. And this is a critical code. Villa Park's stormwater system is already overburdened. The 70% impervious surface allows the village to improve the condition of a current site, which will impact the village for decades, centuries to come. Having 30% permeable surface allows for the absorption of rainwater and snowmelt over time. The current site has 89% impervious surface. The proposed site is 85% impervious surface. So what's the big deal? Currently, the site's mainly impervious surface is a parking lot which allows for sheet runoff. The proposed site is for what they call load point drainage. The developer's plan specifies directing water from the roof directly into the storm water system, and that's on his proposal. I highlighted it for all of you. During June 9th's P&Z meeting, when Mike Guerrera, our director of Public Works, was asked about this, he clearly stated, and I quote, "We do have some cons by then piping directly into the system. As an expert, Mike Guerrera knows this is a problem. Mike Guerrera's statement agrees with what DuPage County Stormwater Quality Best Managed Practices Technical Guide says, and I quote, avoiding the use of storm sewers where possible. The second guidance is disconnect impervious surfaces from the stormwater system." This is exactly opposite of what he is recommending. This is wrong. And we know that we have an issue because on July 5th, we had our latest incident with over 2 inches of water causing flash flooding in the community. Public Works had to go into operation at the wet weather treatment plant facility, and unfortunately, we had to have 2 discharges of untreated human waste, untreated industrial waste, toxic materials going directly into Salt Creek for about 2 hours. And this is one of our natural resources. So we had to dump raw sewage. And for 2022, Villa Park is already at the maximum allotted for the EPA, the EPA, what they allowed. And we have been at the maximum for the past 4 years. We're allotted 4 discharges a year, and we're at the max.
30
and in
seconds.
Thank you. I'm almost done. And in 2018, we had 9 incidences of dumping untreated human waste, untreated industrial waste, and toxic materials into one of our natural resources. 1 incident is bad. We can't have more. So in summary, Villa Park has already been past the max capacity. We have a compromised system. Any new developments needs to be designed to protect against adding to this burden system. We need to stick to that code of no more than 20%, 70% impervious surfaces for all new developments. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Molly Cars.
Hi, my name is Molly Cars. I'm on Princeton as well. I've been there for like 25 years. One of the things I was going to talk about was the impervious surface, but I didn't know all that. So let's just take that and say that I said part of that. So we don't want to give him half the required pervious surface. It's too high that he's asking. Of course, I want something developed on that corner. I just want something that would be more suitable to the neighborhood that surrounds it. And I think we need to look at the new MXT zoning. So this is the first building that is proposed of this type in the MXT. So I feel like we need to hold the developer to the code that's permanently there for MXT, so we can actually see how a building built by code would affect the neighborhood, and if it's successful and is good for the village. I also wanted to say, the other thing I wanted to talk about was, so on Saturday there was coffee with the board, and something that came to mind was people were asking him for examples of buildings that he had worked on, built and managed before, and he is unable to give us the names because he said there had been threats against the buildings or against him. I wasn't sure exactly, but something just didn't really sit right with me for that, and I think a lot of people felt the same way, like there's something going on there. I don't know exactly what it is, but please hold the developer to the code as it's written. Let's see how it works out with the building, following the code, and see if it works for the village. So please vote no for the proposal as it is. Thanks.
Okay. Thanks, Mel.
Okay, Cheryl Tucker.
I'm here for 10A. Just to let you know, I'm here to represent the people of Villa Park and the Park and Rec Advisory Committee, asking you to please approve this contract with WB Olson tonight, and don't postpone it, please, because it's very important that we get this rolling for it. We do not need a delay, so I'm asking you as a board to please approve this contract tonight and not delay it, because the delay will cause a hard time to keep on schedule with the Lions Park Recreational Center, and I want it to keep rolling forward. I don't want any delays, so I'm asking you to please approve the contract tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Okay, next one, I'm not sure if it's Kim Ormond or Ken. Kim, okay, thank you.
So I own the property at 26 West Highland, which is right behind the new development, right across from the alley. So, as mentioned by numerous community members, the proposed development will negatively impact the area. The height of the building will tower over neighboring buildings, blocking out light for other residents, destroy the character of the neighborhood, and the number of units will create traffic beyond our street's capacity. Thank you. The alley to the south already handles deliveries and local traffic, and more cars will mean more accidents, especially at the blind exit that leads onto Ardmore. There aren't enough spots for residents. What about guests? How about sleepover guests given the overnight parking ban? What happens during holidays when relatives visit and stay for days? When late night guests arrive or leave, will they cut across my property to retrieve vehicles parked on Highland, passing by my residents' bedroom windows? As a property owner, trespass is not something I will tolerate. The cyclists this building is supposed to attract are not going to be pedaling their way to Jewel in the middle of February. People in Villa Park have cars. Getting around in this village without one is neither easy nor convenient. The myth of tenants who will travel solely by bicycle is exactly that, a myth. My tenants have concerns about the length of the alley parking spots. Will there be adequate space? What if someone drives a dually with a crew cab? Will the back end of that vehicle overhang the alley, making it difficult for my residents to park? The pricing of these apartments is akin to that of luxury apartments, but there's no luxury to be seen. There's not even adequate parking for residents and their guests. I don't know many cyclists willing to pay outrageous rent for access to a public area. Even in the best of times, young professionals would struggle to pay these rents. Today's inflation has made things worse. The one-bedroom apartments will have 2 bathrooms and a den. How many one-bedroom apartments have you seen with 2 bathrooms? Even Ovaltine Court only offers 1 bath with their bedrooms. Use common sense. Many of these dens will undoubtedly be used as a second bedroom to cram in roommates to divvy up the rent. The convenient second bath facilitates this. We are not stupid. It is clear how these apartments will be used. This will result in even more occupants, more cars, more traffic, and more crime. The term hardship has come up, which is ludicrous. The developer chose of his own free will to purchase this lot and design a building whose footprint is too large for it. Nobody put a gun to his head. One does not engage in poor planning and cry hardship expecting others to pay the price. During a prior meeting, several residents expressed concern about the height of the building, with one person mentioning the effect on solar panels. Later that same meeting, the developer made a comment indicating he could make the building even taller. Are you serious? This comes across like a veiled threat. Give me what I want or I'll harm the community even more. Is this the kind of business the village is contemplating catering to at the expense of existing residents?
30 seconds.
When the topic of traffic came up, the developer's response was to point the finger at the delivery trucks that residents have been coexisting with for decades, rather than take responsibility for adding more traffic. Our local ecosystem works well for everyone through cooperation and mutual respect. Let's not back up street traffic or cause problems for hardworking drivers performing manual labors and all sorts of weather to accommodate an oversized monstrosity. Blue-collar workers such as these drivers are the backbone of our community, not wealthy developers. I personally have not seen an attempt to work with the community. Instead, it's all been variance, variance, variance.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, Justina Tucker, I believe it is, Justina Tucker.
Hi, my name is Justina Zucker, and I live on Princeton. And I have to agree with a lot of my predecessors that talk about concerns they have. I want you also to vote no to those changes that the builder is requesting. I'm concerned about traffic. I'm concerned about safety. I have 2 little kids, that they're going to, actively walking and going to, across the street to gazebo. There's going to be a lot of cars moving in and from the building. That alley, it's a concern. It's going to be very tight the way the building is planned right now. I believe the building, it's too big for the size of the lot. Also, I want to make sure that everybody understands that we do want a development. We just need to have infrastructure. We need something that fits that site. If you think that, apartment buildings are needed, great. But they also need to be a little bit more affordable for the area. And on a coffee with the board, I asked the developer if he would consider to lower the rents, if he has that built in his plan. And he said, the conditions of the market are as it is. There's high inflation. He's not planning to reduce the rents as they are, which I understand. He's a businessman. However, if there's something important to you, affordable housing, you should, take this into consideration when you're going to vote today. So I'll ask you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alicia Bailey.
Hi, I'm Alicia Bailey. I live on Princeton. Obviously, you've made these codes to protect the residents of Villa Park and the village in general. Stick to the code. There isn't enough parking, period. That's all I can say. I mean, the impervious, again, everybody is saying the same things here, and I don't want to keep harping on the horse, but the bottom line is he has not proven hardship on any of these variances. Vote no, please.
Thanks, Alicia.
Okay, Amy Hassan.
So, I do live on the north side of St. Charles, but I attend a lot of events in that area, enjoy the Prairie Path, the library, and the local businesses. I did also go to high school here and have been a homeowner in the village for 9 years. So I'm here to request that you deny the variance request for the project at 27 West Park. I agree with many of the comments that my neighbors have shared in this meeting. The biggest things that are important to me is the aesthetic of the Prairie Path, the parking and traffic there. Just as a resident going through town and trying to use that area, is already a challenge, even when there's not events, but particularly when there are events at the gazebo, there's already not enough parking. And I do feel for the homeowners in that area that the building is too big. It would be too dramatic of a change to go from a residential to a building of that height so immediately, and right on the Prairie Path is I feel a bad choice. So I think it's important, as Alicia just said, we have the codes for a reason, and we should stick with the code and vote against this variance. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Tony Muserino.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for taking time to help with this project. It's great we have a venue for community discussion of these things. I'd like to start, I know that the permeability issue has been discussed often, and I thought a mind experiment or a thought would help kind of visualize why not all impervious surfaces are the same. If you were to take an 8-ounce cup of water and pour it on the table in front of you, some of that water would drain to the front, some would drain to the back into your lap, and some would stay on the surface. If you now put a 1-inch tall border around a 2-foot square area in front of you and tilted the table upwards with a 1-inch opening on this side, and now poured your 8-ounce cup of water, all of that water would be directed to one point. That's what a point source is. And we would be introducing with this development a new point source into the stormwater system as has been mentioned, which is already many occasions overtaxed and can result, we don't yet have complete separation of stormwater and sewage in the village. I know we're heading in that direction, but until then, there are events where raw sewage and other contaminants are dumped into Salt Creek. So we want to try to take this as an opportunity, not to say it's just as bad as it was in the past, but let's see how we can make it better. So that's what redevelopment a lot of times allows us to do, take a grandfathered situation and improve it. Second thing, there's so many issues with the parking on the, I think that if we visualize ourselves as a tenant and we come out of the building during one morning when we've gotten a phone call from management that we need to move our vehicle so they can remove snow, and we walk around to the back of this building where cars are parked, and many of the vehicles would be longer than the 15-foot average. A Chevy Tahoe, a Nissan Armada, there are several Buick Elantra, are all in the 18-foot long range. These spaces are designed to be 15 feet on average. There are no stop bumpers for the tires. You only have 2.5 feet from the curb to the building, so hopefully your vehicle doesn't have a longer nose from the tires to the building, or you're going to bump that building. A lot of people, because of that, are going to back up a little bit and not hug the wall and right be at it. So those 18-foot long SUVs are going to protrude into the supposed 4-foot walkway behind them. Now that tenant who's going to move their vehicle to help facilitate snow removal is going to have to be walking essentially in the alley.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And there will be snow ridges there from village removal. Once they park their car somewhere, the management of the building would have to then put the snow into the alley. That would have to be put somewhere. It's currently parked on the grass next to the Sturley parking lot. That would have to be pushed onto Princeton. So no good news there about how that would actually work. And if you're driving down that lane with those two parking lots blocked and not being able to use it as what they would consider used space or donated space, those people are going to have a hard time getting onto Ardmore. In some cases, may even have to back up. So
Thanks,
thank
Don.
you for listening, and we hope that you will vote no, considering these safety issues.
Thanks.
Janet Shout Gilbert?
My name is Janet Louise Shout Gilbert. I've been a resident of Villa Park on and off for over 40 years. I'm not sure how many in the room can say that. We know what the town looks like. We know what attracts people to it. The reason I'm here tonight, the first time I've been available, is that I'd like to ask our elected trustees to vote no to the proposed development at 27 West Park. I'm thankful to Trustee Corkery for bringing up climate change. What we're finding now, I'm hearing a lot about rain events. This is going to be different than and I'm not a meteorologist, but I'm hearing that these events are going to be different than they've been predicted before. They're going to be heavier rains. We're going to be having more issues, and many people have already eloquently spoken about what our sewers are going to be taxed already, or are already taxed. My main concern about this development is that I believe it's too dense. I think I'm not against development. I'm against inappropriate development. Too dense. It's not near a train station. It's not on a major commercial or traffic thoroughfare. It's now abutting to a residential neighborhood. And we have a responsibility to protect our citizens and our children here. We talked about safety issues. I drive, I see these things. There's a lot of traffic and there's a lot of cars on the roads in that area. I mean, anybody who's been in Villa Park a while and tried to going eastbound on Park and tried to make a left on Ardmore going northbound, you're taking your life into your own hands. And then you've got a pedestrian or a bicyclist crossing on the Prairie Path. It's dangerous. Not to mention that we have a playground down at the Prairie Path and Harvard Avenue. That's another dangerous area. And the idea about cars being diverted down Princeton, that is not helpful. So my main concern is that it's too dense, it's too tall, and the location. I can understand an owner, a developer asking for a single variance. However, when multiple variances are being asked for, to me, personally, that seems to be a flagrant disregard for carefully crafted zoning codes. We put those things in place for a reason.
30
People
seconds.
spend a lot of time. So again, I'd like to say that I'm opposed to it. I'd like to keep the integrity of our village with development, but keep in mind what is appropriate development for our community so we can enjoy it for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Anne Marie Testa.
Hi there, I'm Anne Marie. One of my tasks here right now is to present the board with petition signatures that we've been collecting from Villa Park residents since sometime in May. Let's just say that. When we first learned about this building, proposed development, we started to do some research. Much research is required. And one of the things that we learned to our surprise was that actually a 5-story building is allowed in the new MXT zones, which were implemented in 2018. So there's been one MXT building that's already come down the pipeline just this last spring, but that was a totally different type of building. It wasn't residential. So we're getting into this MXT thing for the first time. There was comments at Planning and Zoning Commission meetings that sometimes you don't really know what's going to happen with some of these newer codes until you start seeing proposals. So like I said, we were pretty dismayed to see that up to 5 stories would be allowed. And overall, we feel that the building's too large, lot line to lot line, not just the height, but the density that is allowed that will increase congestion and impact safety and all that good stuff. So tonight I'm presenting you with 510 signatures from people all around the village that signed up. We positioned this because the first thing that we realized was, you know, these other codes do restrict the size of the building, and we're asking you tonight to follow some of the existing codes that would restrict the size of the building. But the height, you know, just kind of misleads a developer to thinking, oh, wow, I can go 5 stories. You know, then you got to start digging into the fine print. But so we decided to address that because if it was, you know, if the limit was like 3 stories, then there wouldn't be such a large property being considered. So these are the signatures. I'm just going to hand these to you, Mr. President.
No.
You got them, Mr. Officer.
To me, sheet goes to the clerk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so I just want to point out the tallest building in the Ardmore, and it may seem odd, but what we're saying is keep these codes, the other codes that restrict the size of this building, and I know how many seconds it is. So, you know, the height is separate, but it's all the codes come together. He already got one parking variance approved by Planning and Zoning for, or one variance that to move his garage to the Princeton side when the code requires it to be on the alley. The main reason that the petitioner cited for that request was because he was going to lose 6 parking spaces in the alley. So he was short 6 parking spaces, which we gave him, and then he was still short 6 parking spaces.
Your time's up again.
That was 12.
Thank you.
Okay, Patrice Gallagher, the final one I've got signed up.
Hello, I'm Patrice. I live at 36 South Monterey. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you for your service. I really appreciate everyone's comments. I feel they're legitimate, they're well thought out, and I'm asking the board to think how the American Indian would make their decisions. They think 7 generations into the future. I want to think for the children that are small, I want them to enjoy the Villa Park that I've enjoyed. And I appreciate this board. I feel like we're moving into a new phase of Villa Park development, and I want it to be thoughtful. And we're here sharing our concerns. And again, I just think it's legitimate, and I'm asking for you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right,
Somebody
no
else?
one else signed up.
Okay. Anyone else that wanted to speak that did not sign up?
Can I say something really quick?
Sure, come up and give your name, please.
My name is Gina Mazzoni.
Please, there should be another.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I just have one thing that nobody mentioned that I would like to mention. It was mentioned that the building itself has a bedroom and a den and 2 bathrooms. Well, the point was brought up that the den may be used as a bedroom by somebody. But what somebody didn't bring up is that there's no egress window. So if you do approve this plan, excuse me, an emergency would occur, how would a firefighter get in? You know, you have to think about that. So it's not only the people in this village, but it's the people in that building. And the person who's designing this, excuse me, didn't even take that in consideration. So I think that's something really to think about, because it's really safety. And obviously, this person isn't even concerned about the people in the building. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've already talked to you guys once, and I just want to
State your name, please.
Elise Kramer. I just want to reiterate, put yourself in the position of the renter. I worked second shift when I was a renter in Villa Park. I frequently got parking tickets. It creates an animosity between the renters and the police for the very reason that we are putting in buildings that don't have enough parking. Stop the madness. Approve buildings that have enough parking. We're not talking someone who's coming in for 5-10 minutes. We're talking overnight parking. So please take that into consideration.
My name's Ted Ott. I live at 39 West Park Boulevard. I've brought up the issues about the flooding and stuff before, so you guys know all about that. One thing that has been brought up is the alley. And one thing that everybody wants, it's a two-way alley. The only problem with that is the alley's only 12 feet wide. There's no way to pass each other in the alley. Somebody's gonna have to pull over and let somebody go by. And if you put the parking spaces the way they are behind that building, and then you've got the parking spaces behind the 2-story apartment building, nobody's gonna have anywhere to pull over to get past each other. Somebody's gonna get mad. Somebody's gonna have to back up, and somebody's gonna create an issue in the alley. So I just wanted to bring that to everybody's attention. You know, as far as the trucks go, these guys are blue-collar workers, man. They gotta park their trucks somewhere and deliver their stuff. It's their job. They have to do it. And if there's 4 trucks waiting to drop liquor or whatever at Ardmore Station, somebody's gonna have to park in that alley, guys. They're just gonna. It's just gonna have to, because if they don't, they're gonna block up entire streets of Highland, Park Boulevard, Ardmore. So keep that in mind, all right, guys? Thanks.
Please sign in, sir.
Oh.
Hi, everyone. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. You guys are always tasked with these decisions. Obviously, with many residents in tow here, there's really hasn't been one that's been positive about this entire.
Vic, could you state your name
sorry.
just for the record?
Vicki
please?
Plaskamp,
Thank you.
421 South Oakland Villa Park. So no one's been positive about this whatsoever. Usually when you have one of these situations, somebody comes up and speaks positively besides the proposer. So we really need to think about that. The residents are truly speaking to you. Again, they mentioned this is the first time this code is coming into. So you guys are really going to be the ones. Are you going to be held accountable if you make this decision and you let this go through? So in a couple of years, when this residency goes up and there are issues with parking, permeability, any of these issues that everybody has talked about, there's accidents, kids getting hit on the streets and so forth, are you going to be held responsible, or are you going to let the next board be held responsible? Because that's considerably what Villa Park has done in the past. So please, you know, we've had now many changes that come through our village. I think we need to really think wisely about how we're going about this and making sure that these are the right
developments. No one's here is against development. They all want development, but they want the right development for our community. So take that into consideration, please. And I would obviously suggest you vote no. Thanks.
Thanks, Vic. Okay, anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for your comments. I'm sure take that into consideration. Okay, item number 4, amendments to the agenda. Do we have any amendments anyone would like to see? Okay. Seeing none, we will go to item 5A, which is a proclamation recognizing Nancy Woodruff. And I apologize, we should have done this first before that, so sorry to make you sit through this. But this proclamation reads, whereas Nancy Woodruff is a lifelong resident of the village of Villa Park, and whereas Nancy Woodruff has been an instrumental part of the Villa Park business community as the owner of Cherokee Rose for 30 years, and is a founding member of the Villa Avenue Business Association. And whereas Nancy Woodruff was always willing to share her time and talents to support the Villa Park community. And whereas Nancy Woodruff has been instrumental in the very successful Trick or Treat Down the Street event. And whereas Nancy Woodruff was a friend to Willowbrook High School, providing her talents and patience so many times. And whereas Nancy Woodruff truly exemplifies the noble endeavor to leave a place better than one found, and in doing so, inspires all of us to do the same. And whereas the Village of Villa Park, its Board of Trustees and staff would like to recognize and express appreciation for Nancy Woodruff's contribution to the betterment of Villa Park. Now therefore I, Nick Cazzone, President of Village of Villa Park, along with the Board of Trustees, do hereby deem it an honor to present this proclamation to Nancy Woodruff in recognition of dedicated service to the village, and wish her the very best as she begins her next adventures. Anyone that's had kids going to Ardmore or Willowbrook or anything that's been in your shop, I'm sure, around here, buying something. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy? Nancy?
All of it.
Well, no, I always put that special seat.
Well, we'll definitely miss Nancy and Rose for sure. Okay, moving on to items 6A and 6B, minutes from the July 25th, 2022 Village Board of Trustees meeting, and the bill listings from July 25th and August 1st, 2022, in the total amount of $1,017,516.93. And do we have a motion for the consent agenda? Trustee Kumar?
I will make that motion.
And we have a second. Trustee Corkery. Any questions or discussions on this? Okay, seeing none, Clerk Reneke, please.
Okay, Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Salella?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy? Yes. Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
President Cassell?
Yes. Okay, move on to item 7A. This is the first reading of an ordinance to be codified. It's an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, Illinois, granting and denying certain variations related to the development and construction of an apartment building located at 27 West Park Boulevard, Villa Park.
Major Harley. Thank you, President Kazan. This ordinance is presented for first reading and discussion. Ross Builders Incorporated proposes to develop certain property for the purpose of redeveloping, constructing, and operating a 4-story, 24-unit market rate apartment building with elevator, individual storage units on each floor with internal and external parking. A total of 6 variations to the village's zoning code are required in order to allow for the development as proposed. Hearings were held before the Village Planning and Zoning Commission on the requested variations. The commission voted 6-0 to recommend approval of 4 of the variance requests, indicating strict application of the zoning code or unique characteristics of the site create a hardship. The commission voted 3-3 on 2 variance requests, with not all of the commissioners finding the petitioner has sufficiently demonstrated that the variance requests for parking relief and lot coverage are due to hardship caused by conditions on the site or practical difficulties of the zoning ordinance, and not based on financial return. The 3-3 vote is not a positive vote in favor of that. The code requires a 2/3 majority, but a 4-2 vote is a majority and a 2/3 majority in the case of our board. So.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so this is the first reading, so we will just have discussions this evening. Anyone like to bring up any comments? Trustee Murphy.
Yes, I would just like to get validation and clarification of 2 things. One thing is that, am I correct in stating that the height of the building is not under consideration with respect to these votes and variances at this time?
That is correct.
Okay, and the second is that when it comes to vote, it's coming to the board as one single vote, not in piece parts of 6 or such as it went to each of the commissions. It's either for it or against it.
Yeah, we'll let our village attorneys address that one.
That is going to be dependent on the direction, consensus direction that we get from the board today. So what we're desiring today is a discussion on the proposed development and a consensus direction from the board regarding the specific variation requests that the petitioner has applied for. And so it will depend on the discussion today as to how this matter is brought forward for final approval at the next meeting.
Thank you.
As currently written, it's without amendment, it's 4 in favor and 2 down. 4 yes and 2 no.
So,
yes,
Manager Harline is correct. The way the ordinance is presented today for your review and discussion and input is consistent with the vote of the Planning and Zoning Commission, meaning there are 4 variations approved and the 2 variations denied. Those 2 variations that are being denied via this proposed ordinance are the parking variations and the lot coverage variation. But we need direction from the board today regarding each specific variation, and then I can guide the board on how the approval should come before the board at the final stage.
Trustee Kumar.
Is the builder here?
Yes, he is.
Can he speak to these variances, why and how he needs them?
Yes.
He can. I know he has brought this up in front of planning and zoning, but if the board would like him to speak on each one, it's up to the board. It's up to the board.
I personally would like to hear what he has to say.
Okay. Consensus on that?
So you can allow it as the,
Okay. Okay. If the board wants that, we can let him come up and speak. If the board doesn't, we don't have to.
I have a few questions.
Let's just go down. Trustee Patrick?
I am in favor of this.
Okay. Just go ahead.
If you'd like to speak, I think I'm all for it.
Either way.
Okay. Trustee Kumar, obviously, Trustee Corkery, okay. Mr. Ross, if you'd like to come up and just give us a little discussion. And as we said with everybody else, if you can just, I know it's gonna be tough to do it at 3, but be as concise as you can.
Matt, do you know how to make it full screen?
Suzanne's much smarter about this than I am.
Thanks. Good evening, Board and President. I am Craig Ross with Ross Builders. I'm a third-generation general contractor. I've been doing general contracting in the western suburbs since 1999. I live in Elmhurst. I use Prairie Path often. I actually patronize the restaurants and bars along that area, and that's how I came upon the property at 27 West Park. We are we're calling Ardmore Flats. The property is located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Park Boulevard and Princeton Avenue, 1 block west of Ardmore Avenue and facing the Illinois Prairie Path. The property is located within the MXT district, which is mixed transitional, which means it's office and residential. The proposed development is a multifamily building following under the general building requirements of the zoning code. This is the existing conditions. It's almost a complete parking lot with a small building on it. There is a small grass area in the northeast corner. The proposed Ardmore Flats would be a 24-unit, 4-story multifamily building. It does fit the existing MXT zoning. An all multifamily building is allowed by the code. The unit count is allowed by the code. The 4 stories is allowed by the code. It was brought up that 5 stories are allowed in the code, and that is true. Up to 5 stories are allowed. We are under that, obviously. Affordable housing was brought up, and that's the niche for this actual development. Ardmore Flats would cost significantly less in rent than the Union and Garden Station. We wouldn't have all the amenities that they would have, pool, workout room, and all those types of amenities that a lot of people don't want or don't want to have to pay for, or would rather pay for them if they need them on an as-needed basis. Currently, there's a housing shortage, especially in the suburbs, which is why housing costs are rising. This would obviously add to the inventory. Many local empty nesters and young professionals from the city typically do not have school-aged children and are looking for less expensive options. Apartments like ours are typically more affordable than homes and condominiums. They are, we use the term multifamily or apartments. These are condo quality units though. They have high level of finishes. They have in-unit washers and dryers. They're dedicated furnaces and air conditioners. The utilities are separately metered. Rental units are currently in more demand than condominiums right now. But this building could be converted to condos at a later date. We've seen this happen in cycles before, where apartments turn into condos. Right now, condos are turning into apartments. If 10, 20 years from now, the opposite happens, this building could certainly do that. We've worked with the village and the staff for over 9 months now. I first met with Consuelo and Patrick and presented our ideas, which are similar to the 2005 and 2007 PUDs that were approved back in November. Consuelo even emailed me back, said that the apartment building does conform and it's considered a general building, and it was okay with the garage access on Princeton. So we bought the property in late December of last year. In January, we met with village staff and presented the preliminary site plan. Staff was supportive, and they recommended that we present it to the Traffic and Safety Commission. So in February, we met with the Traffic and Safety Commission and presented the site plan to them, which at the time they supported. In March, we met with the village staff to present the site plan, or preliminary site plan, floor plans and elevations. Ellen Weber was present in lieu of Consuelo, and she recommended that we meet with the Planning and Zoning Commission. So in April, we attended an informal Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for some initial feedback. In June, I held a very well-attended town hall meeting with the community to get some feedback. In June 9th, we had our Planning and Zoning public hearing. We got feedback from them, so on June 30th, we had another hearing where we revised the plans and further got feedback from them at our second hearing. Just a couple days ago, on August 6th, I attended the coffee with the Board of Trustees and got community and trustee feedback. And obviously, we're here today attending the first hearing. This is the proposed north elevation, or the front of the building. Although it's a 4-story building, you'll notice that the 4-story is set back, and a different color for that matter, just to break things up. While the design is modern, as some people have said, the materials are not. I mean, it's still brick. Someone had mentioned vinyl siding. It's not vinyl siding. If you look at the standard meadery right next door, we actually were trying to feed off of them. They have black brick. They have some brown siding. We were trying to mix with them. Obviously, you know, the colors could be changed, but we thought, you know, working with the building right nearby would be great. This is the west elevation. Again, you'll notice that 4th floor is set back, again, so it doesn't have that big presence. This is the proposed site plan. Someone had mentioned about the parking in the alley. So we do have 11 outdoor parking stalls, which would be accessible from the alley, and someone had questioned the depth of those. So they're 18 feet deep, which your average car is 15 or 16 feet, and they mentioned, well, what if someone has a deeper car? Well, there's actually 7 feet between the back of those parking spaces until you get to the 15-foot alley. The alley is not 12 feet, it's a 15-foot alley. Some people had mentioned that it's 12 feet. So there's plenty of room to walk, plenty of room for a car to hang over that area, plenty of room for snow removal. There's a lot of room, and we worked with Public Works on that. They had made some recommendations. We originally had a 4-foot, actually less than a 4-foot space back there. We got it to 4, and now we got it to 7. The other thing we're doing is we're extending the curb along Princeton. So if you look in the upper left-hand corner, you can kind of see my cursor. This does not exist there right now. The curb goes straight across. It's a little bit odd because the west side of Princeton doesn't match up with the east side. And so what we're doing is trying to match the two back up. Originally what had happened here at some point, maybe 20 years ago, where those parking spaces are on Park, they weren't there. There was a parkway there. There was probably grass there or some trees. And at some point, the village paved over that to create some parking. So that threw things off, so to speak. So we are proposing to extend that out. It does a lot of things. I mean, again, it adds some green space, it aligns the two sides, it moves the stop bar and stop sign farther north, it makes the crossing for pedestrians better, so there's definitely some improvement there. It adds an ADA space in that upper left-hand corner that you can see, so there's a big benefit to that. The driveway access to the interior parking, so you'll see that on the side of the building here. Again, this is based on feedback, a lot of feedback at least that we got from the community members and from the staff. To pull into this, you can only pull in from North Princeton. The Public Works is proposing that we make a pork chop or make that driveway angled, which I'll show you in another slide. They're also saying not to put a no left turn sign there. So any traffic coming out of there will be forced to go north and not south on Princeton, so that the residents on South Princeton don't have any additional traffic. And then lastly, we did there's a curb cut on Park that we eliminated, so that's going to add 5 new parking spaces, and I'll show that a little bit easier for you on another slide. So we are seeking 6 variances in total. 4 of the variances were recommended for approval by the village staff. Those same 4 variances were unanimously voted for Planning and Zoning Commission for approval. I'll mention them quickly because I know my time's limited here. I don't want to focus too much time on those, but it's the drive aisle width, the garage entrance, the build to zone, and the visibility triangle. The justification and hardship for these 4 are fairly easy to understand. If there's any doubt or questions on these, I certainly can address those after the presentation. The 2 variances that had a split vote by the Planning and Zoning were parking and impervious. In regards to the parking variance, the building will have 11 one-bedroom units and 13 two-bedroom units and 33 parking spaces. That's what we're proposing. The ordinance requires 1 space per bedroom, so that would be a total of 37 spaces. That means we're 4 spaces short. We're looking for 4 parking spaces on the variance. We had a traffic assessment done by KLOA. They estimated that the parking demand for the proposed building would be between 25 and 32. So we're obviously on the high side of that. We're above their high side. We're at 33 and they're saying 25 to 32. In addition to that, it's even common now for municipalities and developers to supply 1 parking space per dwelling unit. According to Yarding Matrix, a well-known national commercial real estate research firm, the national average for newly built apartment buildings in 2016 for the ratio between parking spaces and dwelling units was 1.27 for mid-rise buildings and less than 1 for the Chicago metropolitan area. Ardmore Flats has a ratio of 1.38 spaces to the units. The other thing you have to understand is these parking spaces are not assigned to the units. So this allows spaces to not go unused. So in other words, if we have a tenant who comes to us and they don't have a car, then they won't rent a parking space. So that parking space then could be allocated to another unit or another renter who has a car or 2 cars. As I mentioned, obviously we have the on-site parking variance, but we did add 6 street parking stalls on Park Boulevard, so that's certainly going to help the area and as a public benefit. It's a walk and bike friendly location. There's the library, restaurants, bars and stores in walking distance. There are bus routes that are nearby. There was an approved project back in 2005, just to kind of give you a reference point, that was actually given a variance of 15 parking spaces. Again, we're just looking for 4. Here's something, and again, I want to kind of stress this because this is important, but, potential tenants with 3 cars wouldn't be allowed to rent from us. We don't want somebody who has 3 cars. That's out of the question. And if somebody comes to us with 2 cars, and if at the time 2 spaces weren't available, then therefore that tenant wouldn't obviously rent from us. The number of cars regulate themselves. If let's say we have all the units occupied except for one of them, and we only have 1 parking space available, anyone here in the audience or anyone here on the commission, or I'm sorry, on the board, if you came to us and say, hey, I got 2 cars, I want a unit, obviously we're going to tell you we only have 1, and you're going to say, all right, sorry, this doesn't work for me. Obviously no one's going to try to figure out where they're going to put their other car. People had said, well, they're going to park on the street. Well, obviously there's no overnight parking allowed. I think a couple of tickets after a couple of nights, they would figure out that obviously they can't do that or can't afford that, and it obviously eventually would probably get towed. So no one wants the appropriate number of parking spaces more than us. We don't have a viable option or project, I should say, if we don't offer enough parking. So based on our research and our past experience, this proposal allows for enough parking. This is just some charts from the National Apartment Association where I kind of showed you, or that I mentioned at least, the parking ratio for mid-rises nationally is 1.25. Here's the parking ratio averaged by Metro. It's under 1 in the Chicago area. So again, that's not Chicago the city, that's the Chicago area, so it includes the suburbs. So now in the yellow here, I just wanted to highlight those extra parking spaces that we added. So the 5 on the right there, the top right, there's a curb cut there that we would be eliminating. So that adds 5 parking public spaces. And then, as I told you, we're extending that curb, creating that island where the pink is. So that's going to add that ADA space. Now, as far as the impervious request, the current site stands at about 90% impervious. The proposed development would be about 85%, and would be putting an additional 2.5% of semi-pervious. The proposed building accounts for 65% of the impervious. The stormwater, and why I think this is important, some people brought up that they don't like that fact, but the fact that the roof obviously is going to have a gutter system on it. That gutter system is tied to the storm system. We haven't been told that there's any concerns from Public Works or engineering that the storm system cannot handle that or there would be issues with that. And that's just common practice. And in fact, I think that's, and I have Bob, my engineer here, he might be able to comment on this too. I think it's a village requirement. Any new development, especially commercial, have to tie into the storm system. You can't shed the water out any other way. So it's not, someone had brought it as something we wanted to do. It's something I believe that's required to be done. We don't even have an option on that. That being said, the existing and the proposed grading slopes, because people have brought up flooding, they actually slope northeast. And this was brought up to us by Public Works actually, and told to the residents who were concerned about this. So anything that would land on our property goes away from the residences. It goes north and east. Northeast is the commercial area. The size of the lot and the 70% maximum allowed impervious is what creates the hardship for us. The other thing that we want to mention, in that island that we added that I showed you in the pink, we're actually adding another about 750 square feet of permeable in the public right of way. Obviously, we can't use that towards our calculation, but we are taking concrete and turning that into green space in the public areas. And just to kind of give a reference, everyone's brought up, this is a huge project, this is going to have a huge impact. I think people are forgetting the other huge projects right down the street, and that's the Union. That was approved for a PUD, and their proposed impervious is 99%, and they are required to have 75%. So they're actually 25% short, we're 15% short. So this, and that's obviously a much bigger site, much bigger impact than we would have with our 15% of our lot size. There hasn't been any development in the area for over 40 years. And this is the first proposed new construction general building in the MXT district since this code was enacted in 2018. The village staff has admitted that there's conflicts in the code and there's oversights on the requirements. They're actually proposing some text amendments to the MXT because of this. So that falls specifically really on the first 4 variances that we requested. A lot of them conflict with each other and with other things in the code that just don't make things possible. Again, I can touch on those if I need to later. We think this development would be a great catalyst for the Ardmore Business District. The design would fit in nicely with the surrounding buildings. Like I said, the standard meter uses the same materials. These are the same type of materials that you will see on the houses nearby. It's, again, it may be a modern design, but the materials are going to be, typical materials that you would see. The type of development is a great transition for the boundaries of the business district. So we're obviously at the end of the business district. We feel, and I think most people, even we had at our town hall meeting, I'd asked the question, would you rather see residential here, or do you want to see a restaurant or commercial? People said they wanted residential. I mean, people worry about traffic and parking. This is, out of all the things that are allowed in this district, this is the lowest traffic and parking required. If you go to a restaurant on the first floor, you're going to have much more traffic and much more parking requirements, which is allowed. And somebody mentioned that there weren't any positive comments. Obviously, unfortunately, it seems that at these type of meetings, a lot of people don't come with positive comments, but we did have a lot at the community outreach on June 2nd. You can go to the Facebook page, What's Happening in Villa Park. We have over a dozen members there posting positive feedback. So, in conclusion here at the end, the 4 variances we think seem logical. And again, please let me know if you need me to cover those at all. And just to kind of clarify, I know someone had a question on this. A yes vote on the ordinance as it's currently written means a denial of the parking and impervious variance request. So it's a little confusing. Just want to make sure you're clear on that. So a yes vote would be no for those because it's affirming what the Planning Zoning Commission did. So we ask you to, please consider approval of one or both of the parking and impervious variance requests as there still may be a chance of moving forward by making the project smaller if at least one of these is approved.
Okay, y'all done? Okay, Trustee Kumar.
Right now, we're at discussion only about how we are going to propose and vote on this. Am I correct?
We're discussion of the whole ordinance.
Ordinance,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're not in a voting stage anyway.
Right.
Yes or
Right.
no?
Yeah, we won't vote until the next meeting.
Okay.
Trustee Corkery.
I had a couple questions for the developer, if he doesn't mind answering them. So, what are you thinking for the rents exactly? Because you said they'd be affordable. What does that mean?
Well,
for one and the twos.
Right. I mean, what's affordable today? What's affordable today and what was affordable a year ago is always changing. And as I mentioned to someone at the coffee with the board, obviously inflation's hurting all these affordable housing. We think, usually a vintage unit, something built in the 60s and 70s, maybe stuff that's right across the street, that's fixed up and looks nice, while be it small, probably 600 square feet or so, is going to be like 12 to 1,500. And we think things that like the Union and Garden Station, they're probably 3,000 to 4,000. We're going to be hopefully 2,500 in that range. And again, it depends if it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom, how big it is, garage and amenities like that. Correct.
It does sound a bit high for the Union and the Garden Station. I believe that I'd have to go back and look at the record, but I believe they were about in that 2-3 range, about the same range you're proposing. And as we talked about, they do have more amenities that your development would not.
And they have studios, so it really depends on what they're quoting, right?
Sure.
We don't have studios.
Only if I can throw a hypothetical at you.
Sure.
And I know it was discussed at coffee with the board, but unfortunately I wasn't able to be there.
Sure.
Suppose you cannot get those rents for this area.
Right.
Because telling you the truth, I'm a little bit skeptical that even Garden Station, then the union will be able to get what they're asking.
Sure,
So
sure.
If that doesn't happen, what happens to your project if you build it and then?
Obviously, we have to lower prices. The market will dictate, what rents we will get,
So
definitely.
you will be lowering rents?
We would have to, right. I mean, as someone had mentioned when I answered the question at the coffee at the board, the market will dictate. Obviously what we're saying or thinking they should be is what we think.
Mhm.
Market will dictate exactly what they will be.
And then
Yep.
just one more hypothetical
Sure.
for you, if you don't mind answering.
Not at all.
Supposing that the two variances, the lot coverage variance and the parking variance don't pass.
Right.
What happens then?
Then we have to go back to the drawing board and see if we can still make it work. We don't know that we can.
Sure. So I'll tell you, I'm not very convinced about the permeability requirement, because pavers were discussed in some of your materials. I know a green roof is an option some people talk about, so I don't see myself supporting that one. With the parking one, I'm in kind of a weird place because unlike many of the residents here, I don't have any problem with tall buildings. I think that we definitely have an environmental and economic imperative to build higher density buildings here. I remind everyone that the Ovaltine factory has been in this town longer than any of us have been alive. It is a 4-story building on the Prairie Path. However, I am very concerned about the 2 bedrooms or the 2 bathrooms in the 1-bedroom apartments. That does seem to be pretty open to abuse. I mean, that would seem to indicate more than one tenant living in a 1-bedroom apartment. I can't really see any other reason to have them there. I've never been in a 1-bedroom apartment that has 2 bathrooms. I've never rented one. I've never visited one. So I'm very concerned about that.
Well, we definitely think, in most of the 1 bedrooms, there would be 2 people living there. I mean, it would be a couple, whether they're married or not, or 2 roommates, whatever they could, if they're married or not. I'm not saying 2 roommates that aren't, somehow connected, let's put it that way.
Sure.
What we have found, the den studies, whatever you want to call them, have really come into vogue the last couple of years.
Mhm.
So obviously COVID hit, you can have a married couple, a couple that's, dating, whatever the case may be, both working from home, and one person wants to be in a den to actually do their work, and the other person, maybe they're going to work or they're using the other bedroom as where their place of work. So dens are becoming very, very popular. I don't know, I would assume that the Garden Station or the union might have dens in some of their unit counts too. I don't know. I don't know if anyone knows the answer to that question, but I do know they're becoming much more and more popular.
But dens with 2 bathrooms?
Sure, yeah, definitely. Yep.
Never heard of that. I'm sorry. It just,
Okay.
I think it was Ms. Muzzoni who said it could be a serious fire hazard, and I definitely think that's a real concern.
Well, you can't prohibit someone from having a den in a house or in an apartment building, and just because it's going to be a fire hazard. It's not a bedroom. It doesn't have a door on it, so it can't be used as a bedroom. Obviously, when we see people signing leases, let's say there's 3 people who want to sign a lease. Well, now we have questions. Now we have issues. I don't know how much, without getting discriminatory, how much we can dig into, who's renting or what they're using it for. But obviously, we would be aware of abuses too.
So how would you enforce the limit on people on
That's what I just said. I don't know.
You don't know?
How, without being discriminatory, I don't know the answer to that question.
Discriminatory how?
Based on a number of people that they have, you're saying, well, some people could say there's a couple of 3, I don't know.
We
don't
do
know.
have problems already in Villa Park with overcrowding, with more people living in a building than are supposed to, and it is a very serious safety issue.
Sure.
And also reflects on the parking issue, I think, because if people are doing that, and if you can't stop them, then that could create an even bigger parking problem than might be created.
And that's where, again, not having 3 parking spaces per unit would prohibit that. I mean, again, it self-regulates itself. I'll pose this question to you as a hypothetical. Again, if I'm renting, I have 1 unit left with 1 space, and you are married and you both have a car, are you going to rent from me? I don't know anyone who would.
Sure. I suppose I wouldn't live in a partitioned off den either, but that is what we are discussing here.
Sure.
Right? So it's hard for me to put myself in that headspace, so I have to tell you the truth.
Sure.
Trustee Kumar.
Okay, so you have decided to build another multi-story rentable unit, like 2 other, as you keep pointing out, as Union and Garden Station. My concern as an economist is you don't have the same amenities,
Right.
You do not have the same, you don't have that lower rent because you're starting later. You're the third mover in this group of people building, so they're probably going to get done before you. So as a third mover, you need a niche strategy for your house.
Right.
If it doesn't fill for us as a board and as a community, we are dependent on tax revenue from apartments, and that tax revenue comes from apartments that are filled. And so for all of us, we want all the apartments in Villa Park to be filled. We don't want them to be empty. We want them to be filled, and yours will be the last, if anything. And if it's not filled, we don't get the same revenue. So I have to think also in terms of that. Now, why you decided to do the same as someone else when you're not offering almost the same or equivalent in terms of amenities, to me, as an economist and a strategist, is a little confusing, to be honest.
Well, frankly, we don't have the space. I mean, obviously, those are 200 and 300 unit buildings, which are much larger and have the space to have.
Yeah,
those
but then
amenities.
why not build a row of townhomes? We have those on Kenilworth. They're beautiful. They sell out in minutes, and there is a different population that would buy those. So you're addressing the same set of individuals that were addressed through whatever statistical analysis you were mentioning. And my concern is you're the last mover or one of the last movers in this. And I mean, that's
I would
your
doubt that
choice, but
we would be done before them. You know, for us to do a 24 units, for them to do 200 or 300 units, there's a good chance we'd actually be done before them. And again, the market will, I don't know, no one knows exactly what the rents are. They don't even know exactly what the rents are going to be when they're done. But the market will force us to have lower rent. We have no choice but to have lower rents than them. We obviously can't have the same or higher rents.
But honestly speaking, with the construction cost today,
Right.
which you will admit
Definitely.
is not what it was, when people started, there are locked in rates for construction. And if they started earlier, they're going to lock in their rates. So everybody who starts earlier starts locking in with different people, depends on, I mean, that's how it works in the world. So my concern is you may be done before, you don't have the same amenities, it still won't fill in the same way. And for us to vote on all these different variations, you're not really showing hardship. Hardship to me means if it's not about your return on investment. Hardship is not about your own personal return on investment. It's a particular property, and you do show it in the 4 cases, but definitely not in the 2. It's that this particular property, for some other reason, will never be built in any way if we don't address these 2 conditions, and I just don't see it. So I honestly cannot vote to allow the variations.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes, I have a question for Director Guerrera, if you would please. Can you help us all understand the permeability of that particular property? And we've had a lot of discussion about flooding in that area. Is the permeability of that specific property causing the flooding in the area? And if we reduce the permeability on that property, is it going to help these people, or is there water coming from somewhere else?
So my staff has researched the location, and we've had historic flooding issues within that area, but it's mostly regarding backyard drainage within the backyards, which is the slope of the properties. This location, as it currently stands, as was pointed out by the developer, does drain to the northeast. The topography kind of sheet drains it to the northeast, pushes it out onto Park, and then down Park to the intersection of Park and Ardmore, which is all in the same drainage system. They're all tied, all those sewers are still tied to the same storm sewer as it facilitates through the community. But with this location, it would not contribute directly to the backyard drainage. It would just be contributing to the same location that it's already draining to, which is the same storm sewers.
So we obviously don't want to exacerbate the problem, for sure.
Correct.
But it's sounding like we're not anticipating even, I was very much in favor of, I don't know who it was, someone who made the comment that, new development gives you the opportunity to fix some of the things that, perhaps weren't done the way we were hoping at the time that they were done. But from what I'm understanding with the permeability, even when we do that and we do get that reduced, that's not the answer to the flooding issue in that
Correct.
area.
I guess that was kind of, if that was a little confusing, I'm sorry, but yeah, so it does sheet flow now. This would be a little bit different. And I think as is pointed out, I think in the memo, we would still have to go through all final engineering, which would require them to meet the county stormwater ordinances and the village ordinances with the calculations of the stormwater, how that facilitates into the drainage, and where it's going, the release rates, those sort of things. Obviously, this was preliminary engineering, so we're looking at impervious surface coverage, but we don't look at the actual, they would have to provide the actual design calculations of what those runoffs are, how their system is designed to collect it and distribute that into our system, so then we can evaluate it. But our goal would never to, our goal would be always at least, it can't make it worse. We got to make it at least the same or better with any development, and that's how our staff looks at it.
But it does sound like it would improve, while it won't perhaps improve the properties going the other direction, it will reduce the amount of water going in the direction that the flow is currently designed.
It would reduce it in the sense of they are showing a reduction in impervious surface
Right.
with their design. Correct.
Thank you.
Trustee Patrick.
I have a couple of questions for the developer. First of all, you stated that your tenants will not have assigned parking.
Correct.
My question is,
When I say that, meaning it's not assigned to the unit itself, but once, let's say someone rents a unit and then they rent one parking spot, that parking spot would be assigned to them personally, but not to that unit. So if they move out, that parking space is now freed up. Hopefully that makes sense.
how will your tenants go about reporting parking violations on your property if all of the spaces aren't accounted for? Could this potentially have someone that does have two cars moving their car around to other open spots?
I guess I don't understand your question. I mean, all the spots would be assigned to individuals in the building.
So if an individual is renting one of your units, how do they go about reporting the parking violation if somebody is in one of their spots?
To us, they would report it to us.
And then how would you call that into the police, and they would, or how?
No, I don't
would
think the
you-
police would handle that private matter because it's on private property. We would have to handle it.
And
we would talk to the
have
tenant.
the car towed or removed?
We could, yes, those could be
So
options.
if there are open spots due to the lack of tenants or what have you, what's preventing another tenant that actually lives there that has two cars from parking in a spot that's vacant?
I guess they could. I don't think there would be any harm to anything, though.
Okay.
But obviously, when we go to rent that unit, then they couldn't do that. So obviously, I don't see why, again, someone would come to us and with, let's say, two cars and only rent one space, because they know eventually, even if there's an open unit space now, and they don't know that, obviously, when they rent, that it would be there forever.
Okay. Thank you. My last question for you is that I've been contacted by a few residents regarding your company's previous experience with developments. And they were expressing their interest in where those developments are located and if you could disclose those addresses so that way they could investigate your work.
Sure, we're doing a project right now at 5117 South Fairview in Downers Grove, and we're starting another one. These are both similar to what we're doing, or proposing to do here at 204 South Wheaton in Wheaton.
Thank you.
Sure.
Trustee Kozar.
In your presentation, you said you added 6 parking spots.
Correct.
What, are those 6 spots counting towards the number of spots that you need, or are they?
No, we can't count those because those are on public right-of-way. So those are public spaces to be used by the public.
And I don't think you can park there overnight.
You cannot, correct.
Yeah. That's why it can't.
Be the ones in gold. So the 5 in the right now there's a curb cut there, so access to this property, which we would no longer need or want or can even have, based on the ordinance, you can't have an access on the front. So we'd be closing that off, which then allows us to put 5 parking spaces for the public. And then we're adding the 6th one where we're going to extend the island or proposing to extend the island.
Trustee Solella.
Yeah. I don't know, I got a lot to say, and I don't really know where to begin, but I'm gonna start with the residents. I've listened to a lot of them. They've all voiced their opinion on this new building, which by code MXC can be built there, but doesn't fit. Doesn't fit because it doesn't belong. You see the picture of it standing free in a green space of beauty and flowers, but we don't see their houses and the impact that that building's gonna make on their homes. The homes they've lived there for years. We don't see the flooding issues that they have in their backyards that aren't gonna be addressed, possibly made worse. We don't see the traffic, the kids, the buses, the people trying to get out onto Ardmore. We don't see any of that, just a beautiful freestanding building, which is great. I also believe that we are starting to build a building and custom fit its codes and ordinances that are in place right now that we're disregarding to make this building work. That's not how it goes. There are variances, some things change, but this whole project seems to be, I'm first, we've never done this before, so let's build our codes and ordinances around the fit of this building. I don't believe that's the way it should be. I think new development is great. I think there's a better fit for that neighborhood. It's not a 4-story put into a small area that's going to cause problems down the road. Just my thought on it. It's also the thought of our residents who voiced their opinion quite well. I'd be open to any other comments later. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Trustee Kumar.
Visitor parking. Where are your visitors in that building going to park?
So visitors could use the street parking.
There's only 6 street parking spaces for the visitors, plus the businesses in that area. And they can't park overnight.
Correct.
And so nobody's going to visit anybody overnight. I mean, this does
That's
not
right.
seem like a reasonable assumption. I have a family. I lived in an apartment in Evanston for years. I've lived in apartments, for a very long time. 8 years in Evanston, which is very built up. And in Versailles, which has great parking. As an apartment, as a person who's lived, a lot of their life in the apartments, the parking for visitors is absolutely essential, and I do not see this in this plan. You don't even have enough parking. Now, you said something about, you showed some statistics, which I want a little further. As a statistician, I'd like some explanation of. The city of Chicago allows 1 parking space in general, and generally in suburbs, you have about 2. So when you average those things, you get that 1.25 or the 1.38, 1.5 number. And that's why the metropolitan, if you look at the metropolitan area, you're going to get that number, which seems like, oh, we have enough here. But we are in a suburb. We are not the city of Chicago. And we do not want to be the city of Chicago. We want to be Villa Park. So for us, as the neighborhood that I've grown up in since I was 8 years old, though I moved away, came back, I really value the way we have our codes, what we expect for our parking, what we expect for our impervious services. We have actually just implemented a kind of a motion to have better climate change. We want to be the progressive neighborhood that we've become. We don't want to go backwards in terms of that in any way or form, and I'm concerned that we are kind of retrofitting backwards with this particular thing. If you don't even have parking for the guests, at least you should have people visiting people, especially post-COVID. I just have to say that.
Okay. Trustee Patrick.
Thank you. I have a question for our Public Works Director. Director Guerra, we had a resident earlier talk today about the July 4th rain, or not the July 4th, I believe, the July 5th flooding in that area. She referenced our max allowance discharge of pollution into our drainage system. Now, I know that our EPA NPDES permit has a max allowance of discharge into the sewage. Can you confirm that we did in fact go over our max allowance for the NPDES permit?
No, I can't confirm that. The allowance is not 4. the federal code states 4 on an average year, but there's no defiance of an average year in there. So that's kind of the variance that kind of goes into or the nuances that goes into that federal regulation. It's the Clean Water Act. And so we have to report every discharge that we make into the Salt Creek Sanitary District. That's all reported to IEPA, and they review them all. And so that 4 per year is not a hard number per se, because there's years that we have so much rain or intensity of rains that it's uncontrollable, that we can't not discharge due to how the system's designed. Obviously, we're utilizing some 1920s and earlier technology, and it's 2020. And so we can't say we exceeded our permit because we do regulate that. The only one that can say that would be the EPA. They would come in and can talk to us. And so we do report them all, and it's up to the EPA to kind of determine. And so far to date, we have not been deemed non-compliant yet. As several communities deal with this issue, the CSO issue, and as was stated, we are moving towards separation to try to limit those. So does that answer it? In terms of regulation, It's the 4 numbers there, but it's on an average year, and there's really not a hard defiance of an average year.
Are the NIFTY's permits renewable every 5 years?
That is correct. Yeah, it's a 5-year cycle.
Did we just recently renew ours?
I believe we got our new permit last year.
So the EPA, the Illinois EPA, would not have time to review until our application for the next permit. Is that correct? Which is 4 years down the road?
Like I said, every time we discharge, we're required to submit a report to the EPA, and those reports get submitted to the EPA. I think we have to submit them within a certain time frame. I can't think of that exact time frame. It's like 24 or 48 hours after the end of the event that we have to submit. So when we're done discharging, we have to submit a report, a standardized IEPA report to them stating how long we discharge, the number of, like, the total volume of rain that we got, the inches of rain we received. And so those all get in and go to the compliance officer, and it's their duty at the IEPA to review those.
Thank you.
Just to, this storm system, I actually don't know the answer to this question. Does this storm system feed into the combined system, or is this part totally separated and a storm system issue, not a sanitary sewer issue, which is the wet weather treatment plant is when stormwater in some combined systems and in other infiltration and inflow gets into and increases the volume of our sanitary sewer system, and we get the overflow. Is this storm system in any way tying into and contributing to that sanitary sewer system off the top of your head?
So the answer is yes and no. So in this location, the sewer is separated.
Yeah.
The combination sewer has been separated into a storm sewer. The storm sewer runs down the middle of the Prairie Path along Park, and then the sewage goes into the sanitary separated, which was the existing combination sewer. This drainage basin that is all tied into that, where this sanitary combination sewer ties into, is not fully separated. So there is still some components farther down on the system that is still under the combination where the sanitary line ties into. But the stormwater sewer, or the stormwater at this location, ties into a stormwater sewer specific sewer and goes to Salt Creek under the storm sewer capacity. That makes sense. So the storm sewer tied in is separated. The combination line that they're tying the sanitary in is still not 100% separated farther down the line, tributary to the location.
Okay, so any inflow and infiltration into the sanitary system here could go to the wet weather, but the actual stormwater runoff that we're talking about, most of that is probably not contributing to those overflows at the wet water treatment facility.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
The stormwater will be handled in the conventional system going to the storm system. And I should point out, the idea is, yes, when we do have outfalls to the CSO, there is some untreated water, sanitary water. The belief is that it's highly diluted, but it's still untreated, but it's not full-blown. The belief is that everything in the sewer under that first flush, the amount of water is getting pushed to the treatment plant, and then it's the continual rain and outfall continues to go out.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Did you answer all your questions, Trustee Pedrick?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? I do have one question for Mr. Ross. MXT allows commercial and residential. When you were designing this, did you look at commercial on that first floor, which would obviously reduce the amount of parking that you'd need?
We did, and that was another, as I think I mentioned, topic that I brought up at the town hall meeting, asking the community, would you rather see, and I think I mentioned at my conclusion too, would you rather see residential on that first floor, or would you rather see commercial? And I don't think anyone said they wanted to see commercial, because they know commercial brings in more parking, more traffic issues, where residential, as I had mentioned, is going to be the lightest load on commercial and parking. You could put obviously a restaurant on the first floor at this site. That would be heavy traffic, and people are asking about parking and people visiting. Geez, that would really, that would be under the code allowed, and that would really put a strain on things. So we didn't think that was appropriate based on the community feedback. But that would, to your point, eliminate our request for the variance. I could eliminate that right now today. I just take those 2 units on the first floor, make them commercial, and the variance request goes away. I don't think that's really what the community needs or wants. But we could do that if that's what you think is appropriate.
Okay, no, that's my question. Thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? So what, we want to just see consensus on if we want to vote on the whole thing first.
I mean, like, you want to do any amendments?
Yeah, we were just discussing here how we want to vote when this comes up at our next board meeting. Do we want to vote on it as one ordinance, the way it's written? Or would the board rather look at each ordinance separately? Or we can say, yes, we approve the ordinance as written, allowing 4 variances and denying 2 variances. So if we can get a consensus on that, if you want to do the vote as one ordinance with all 6 variances on there.
And
Clerk,
and correct me if I'm wrong, please. Before the other option would be to suggest amendments that would split the variations out differently.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So this would be a consensus on just having the ordinance as it is written currently. Okay, Clerk Konecki.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Sillella?
Yes, I'd like to vote on the entirety.
Okay.
So,
Yes,
just for clarification, so the ordinance as written, as Mr. Ross has said, if you vote yes, you'd be denying the parking variation and the lot coverage variation and approving the other 4 variations. If your vote on, when it comes before you for your official vote, it would be a yes.
Then the only other way would be individual.
Correct. So the consensus that's being taken now is whether you would like to consider this matter in one ordinance, the way it's written today, and as it's written, with the 2 variations on parking and lot coverage being denied and the remainder being approved.
So no.
Okay. Trustee Moser?
So what you're proposing right now is it's all or nothing. And aren't we then changing a variance and setting precedent that these variances, not just this builder, but future builders, it's a de facto PUD at that point?
So that's what we're asking the board to decide right now. Do you want to vote on this matter in one ordinance, consistent, or would you like to, consistent with the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation, or would you like to consider each variance separately, and we can have that consensus from the board, and I will then prepare the appropriate approval documents for the board to consider at the upcoming meeting.
So my concern is not necessarily for this builder. If we vote to make this a de facto PUD, it's going to happen in the future. If somebody goes in to get a variance or multiple variances, they should be allotted the ability to be voted on those variances, either pro or con. If we want to go with what P&Z votes, we do it. If we don't agree with P&Z, we don't. They're just an advisory board. But by taking it all in one, we set some sort of precedent moving forward that'll be on record, that there's no difference between a variance and a PUD. The board gets to decide which it is.
Well, and that's all
I just
we're
don't think
saying
that's a
right
good,
now. So then obviously you would
precedent
say
to
no on this consensus. But for that reason.
Correct, you don't want to consider it all at once. All in one vote, all in one document. You want to be able to consider each item
A variance should
separately.
be a variance, a PUD should be a PUD.
And Trustee Solella, you have the same position, because
Yes.
even though there are some variations that were recommended approval, you may have a different vote on
Yes.
even those as well.
Right.
Okay.
So your consensus would be no?
Yes.
Okay. So that would be a no.
Trustee Solella?
Yes.
No.
You haven't, no, it's a no. Okay, trustee Solella, that was a no. Thank you. Trustee Murphy?
No.
Okay, trustee Kumar?
No.
Trustee Patrick?
No.
Trustee Corkery?
No.
Trustee Kozar?
No.
President Cassell?
Okay, I'll say no.
Okay.
So what I believe the consensus will be of the board is to vote on each variance separately. So we will direct the attorney to prepare the ordinance in that manner, correct?
Yes, if the board would like to give a consensus on each variation at this time, you know, for instance, if there's a unanimous position of the board on several of the variation requests, that can be put in one ordinance. But if it's the direction of the board at this time to do 6 separate variation ordinances, I can do that. And we don't have to have any further discussion on that. You can make your decision when it's presented to you at the upcoming meeting.
Yeah, and I think trustee Kozar you prefer to have each one separate, correct?
I prefer to have them separate.
Yeah,
Okay.
which I think
Again,
the board, yeah.
not based on the builder, but just for a future precedent that we're setting by doing it.
We'll do that way. We'll set one each.
Perfect.
Okay.
Do you know this consensus? Or
No,
not agreed
yeah,
on?
I
It's
think
agreed on?
we're pretty
Okay.
well on that, yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that will be on the, excuse me, the August 22nd meeting, will be the vote on the ordinance. Okay. Ordinances. Okay.
Can I ask one more question for clarification? There are conditions that were proposed in the ordinance with respect to those 4 variations that were recommended approval. So I just want the board to take a look at that for when you know, you consider this matter. So there was an additional request for a condition made by the first member that spoke in the public regarding a fence along the east side of the property. Can I have a consensus of the board as to whether or not I should include that as a condition?
Trustee Kumar.
I would like, I will propose that we include that,
Okay, so we can,
and someone can second me, and then,
okay. Would you do a voice vote on that, or should we do a consensus?
Do we have any opposition to including that as a condition from anyone?
I just wouldn't be ready to vote on the fence. I'd like to see it. I'd like to go out there and see how a fence would affect that property.
But we can bring it back for consideration.
Absolutely could bring it back
Okay.
next meeting.
Right.
I'm just not
Okay.
willing to commit right now for it.
Okay.
Okay, so we should be all set for that for the 22nd.
President Guzon?
Yes.
Just one more clarification. The modifications that the attorney was just referencing that you're asking us to review, are those the recommendations from traffic and safety if this moves forward?
The recommendation from planning and zoning.
Both
No,
actually.
there's 4. I think there's 4 from traffic and safety.
There were a total
At
of 10, now 11 items that would be conditions. I believe 6 of those were from planning and zoning, based upon their recommendation of approval, and 4 or 5 were from traffic and safety. So those traffic and safety recommendations were included in the conditions.
Okay, we all set? Okay, we will go on to ordinances. Item 9A is an ordinance terminating the designation of the Villa Avenue redevelopment project areas created by the Village of Villa Park as a tax increment financing redevelopment project area and dissolving the special tax increment allocation fund for said redevelopment project area. Measure Harline.
All right. The ordinance, if approved, will effectuate closure to the redevelopment project area TIF that previously expired on December 31, 2019. This is the often known as the Ovaltine District. Specifically, the ordinance will dissolve the special tax allocation fund for the redevelopment project area and terminate the designation of the redevelopment project area. This allows the village to close the books and records on the redevelopment project area and distribute any excess monies up to the appropriate taxing districts, which is of particular interest to the school districts. In accordance with state law, once confirmation that payment of project costs and obligations are issued in connection with the redevelopment project area have been retired. This is something that the both school districts have been very interested in getting because we will be able to release those funds that we had held to make sure that all challenges to the tax abatement had been met. We have met all those challenges. They are have all been responded to, and we can close this out, and it will just be a regular taxable property going forward.
Thank you. Okay, do we have a motion for this ordinance? Trustee Kumar? Trustee Sololo, a second. Questions, comments? Trustee Kozar?
Is there any reason not to close this out? I mean, every reason points to closing it out. I mean, why would one vote against closing this out?
We hope they won't.
Yeah, it's a matter of course that you just have to do is bring it up as.
We're legally required to do that so that we can then say this is done, we can distribute the funds. We have no reason, everything is done, all the appeals have been, have run their course. I don't know if you got anything you wanted to add.
Yeah, this is just in compliance with this TIF statute to pass this ordinance, to be able to close this out.
There is a small amount that would come back, well, there's $300,000, I think, approximately, that would come to the city as well, so that's withheld from us.
Okay. Yeah, do we have a exact number what's in there, a rough number, total that's in there?
Yes, we do. I don't have it off the top of my head. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's, there's one district, one of the school districts would get over $1 million. That's where we were holding that to make sure that all appeals, all tax bills were finalized, and that has been done.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other questions or comments? Clerk Konecki, please.
Okay, Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Silella?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
President Kazan?
Yes. Okay, we'll move on to resolutions. Item number 10A is a resolution to approve and authorize the execution of a standard form of agreement for construction management services by and between the Village of Villa Park and W.B. Olson for the Lions Park Recreation Center project. Manager Harlan.
The staff recommends a retention of W.B. Olson of Northbrook, Illinois for construction management services in the amount not to exceed $1,396,002 for the construction of the Lions Park Recreation Center. Costs include pre-construction design and assist services for $60,000, construction phase services for $696,002, insurance costs 1% of the total cost of construction, and profit fees 3% of the total cost of construction, for an estimated cost based on construction costs of $16 million, or an approximate total fee of the $1,396,200. The Recreation Committee supports the recommendation. Funds are available from the Illinois Department of Natural Resources Build Illinois Bond Fund Grant. And then the only thing I'll add is there are representatives here from W.B. Olson and Williams Architects, and that there was a competitive process, and Olson was judged as the best option from the different companies that submitted proposals or qualifications.
Okay, thank you. Okay, do we have a motion? Trustee Kumar?
I'll make that motion.
Second, trustee Patrick?
I'd like to second that.
Okay, any questions or comments? Trustee Kumar?
Just the 16 million, this is, it, initially I thought our expense was much more than 16 million. Where is the 16 million number coming from?
Just
I think the total, I don't know if Greg Golowitz, but the total project cost is slightly over 17 million, so it's 16 plus this comes up with the total number.
Okay, it's just making sure. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think the bond, or the one.
The bond was for
7.5
17,
million.
Right.
17 and a half, so
Right.
I want to make sure everything matches up.
Yep.
Any other questions or comments? Trustee Kozar?
So there was a competitive bid process. Who were those other companies and what was that competitive bid process?
It's a request for qualifications, but yes, there was a competitive process.
There wasn't a bid process. These were, for the service. It's not a bid process.
It's not based on price. It is based on the qualifications.
Qualifications. So there's no, it's not like going out to bid for a car or truck or anything like that. Professional services.
Yeah,
Similar
this
to-
was, requests for qualifications are done pursuant to the Government Professional Services Selection Act, because this is the selection of professional services. So there's a procurement method for doing it, but it's not the same as actual going out to bid.
Right, and then to expound on that, what we did was we went out for qualifications for construction management companies, posted in the paper, contacted some of the companies. Actually attended some of our input meetings, Olson being one of them, and then they sent us their qualifications and we reviewed. We had 11 submissions. Well, we had 11 requests for the specs, and then we had 7 companies submit their qualifications. And then we reviewed their qualifications, and out of those 7, we picked 4 that had like projects and fit our needs for this project. So
And
we
then
picked
you
4 and interviewed 4.
Yep.
Have we worked with Olson before?
We have never worked with Olson before. Williams Architects has worked with them before. Actually, they've worked with the 4 finalists that we've had. They've worked with each of the construction management companies.
But we also haven't, we haven't built a rec center, so they don't, what WB Olson does isn't like the things that we do very often. So it's not unusual that we haven't used this firm. Does that make, so, okay. I don't know, have we used any of the other, I think at least one of the other construction management companies.
We haven't, when we were discussing this with the Williams Architects, they have worked with all the other construction management firms. They're all reputable. Actually, they're all very close in their qualifications. I don't think we could have went wrong with going another way. So there was different items that we picked out that best fit our needs and best suit our needs, and Olson was that company.
Did you want, I mean, I'm sure you remember the name of the other 4 that you interviewed.
It was Lamp, Leopardo, and Henry Brothers were the other finalists.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Again, the Williams and WB Olson are here if you have any other questions.
Well, I'm going to correct you, Manager Hireline. Williams is not here, but
Oh,
2
sorry.
representatives from Olson
Sorry.
are here. If you want to ask them of the process of what's
Sorry.
next,
Misunderstood.
you're more than willing to give them a chance.
Trustee Kumar?
I would like to hear them say a few words about the ensuing process.
Dan Pofus and Bill Cody are here. This is good.
You came all the way, it's just not fair to
I've stood so long, thank you. What would you like to?
The next steps in the process, this is of course an earmarking, very exciting project for Villa Park.
The next step in the process really is for us to sit down with the Park and Rec staff and with Williams, get brought up to speed on where everything is at now, and Williams has shared some of that information with us, so we can start looking into it. And then we'll do probably like a concept budget to see where the plans are at now and where they fit in the overall budget. We can start to make recommendations if necessary on materials, In today's environment, one of the first things we look at are long lead items. I'm sure everybody's heard of the supply chain issues out there we're confronted with every day, so that you can start to look if there's any of those that we can switch to a different material where there isn't those problems that meets the needs, or if there are other things we might need to do as we go through the design, which could be early bid packages that allow you to procure those items so they're available when you do need them and not impact construction. Ideas on cost and where things are. We spend a lot of time going out to the marketplace and the subcontractor following that we have to gauge what the current costs are for all types of construction, this being one of them, so that there are no surprises as we go through the process. We continue that all the way through. As Williams then continues to develop the design, we continue to comment on where things are from a cost standpoint. We also start to review them for a constructability standpoint, maintainability, sustainability, all of those different aspects that come in to make sure that they don't veer off track and have to bring things back, that the budget doesn't veer off track, or that where there might be decisions that the village needs to make on anything, they're brought forth as quickly as possible so that decisions can be made and the process can continue.
I also want to ask about projects you've worked on previously, if there's any earmarked projects of this size that you want to say, this is my favorite, this is, you know, what we've done.
I've worked personally when I was doing projects on two different rec centers, one with Williams, which was one up in Barrington, Langendorf Rec Center, very similar in size and in scope to what this project is envisioned to be. That was built in 2009. The budget at that time was about 12 million, so if you escalate it to today's dollars, it's very similar.
So you can't get this one at 12 million?
We had a little bit different bidding environment when we bid that project in 2008, which if everybody remembers what went on then.
Oh, yeah.
That project actually at that time came in about $1 million under budget when it was bid. Not that I wish for the same economic times to happen by the time we get this one there, but what we can do by being involved early is to make sure that when we put a budget out there, that we have faith in it and you can have faith in it, that that's where the project's going to go when it's bid. I've done a rec center for North Park University also, and for the Waukegan Park District, Hingston Park Fieldhouse. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that one. They do a lot of basketball, AAU basketball things they were doing up there for years.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Okay, Trustee Kozak.
So, unless I'm missing something, I mean, this is the only choice that we have. This is what was given to us, right? And we got this contract on Friday. Besides 3 projects that you've worked on, what makes you better than other companies that you competed against? Like, why choose you?
I think one of the things that we bring, there are a couple of things we bring that I think that we have an advantage over other firms. One is our flexibility to deal with things as they develop with staff or with the village. We've gotten that feedback from a number of our clients. The other thing, our size allows us to make sure that upper management and executive management, of which I'm part of, is directly involved in every project that we do. So every project that we do has a company principal attached to it that keeps it on track, that helps stay focused on all of those things. As you get to other firms, they'll put a team on it and that team runs with it. They might report to somebody, but they're not there involved in it necessarily every step of the way as we are. And in this case, through pre-construction and construction, there's 3 of us that are principals in the firm that are involved in this project.
And they have done more than 3 rec centers.
Yeah, I personally have done 3. We've done many over the years. We've done Park District work for the better part of the 53 years that W.B. Olson has been in business. So other people have done them. I personally had worked on 3. I've worked on many other projects in the nearly 40 years I've done this too.
You said 53 years, is that what?
We've been in business for almost 53 years.
How big is Folsom?
In number of people.
Number of people? And revenue?
Our average revenue is between 60 and 70 million a year. Most years down a little bit with COVID last year, but on average we're between 60 and 70 million. We have about 17 people, I think 15 people in the office and about 15 people in the field. We don't run a lot of trade labor, so we only have a couple of carpenters and laborers. Our field staff is primarily superintendents and the people that run the work, manage the work. About 70% of our work is done on a construction management basis, negotiated basis, similar to this process, where we're providing a service over actual doing the construction.
Yep. Okay. Okay. Seeing no other questions, Clerk Konecki, please.
Okay, Trustee Murphy?
Yes.
Trustee Patrick?
Yes.
Trustee Kozar?
Yes.
Trustee Corkery?
Yes.
Trustee Sewella?
Yes.
Trustee Kumar?
Yes.
President Kazan?
Yes. Thank you. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Likewise, thank you.
Okay, move to item number 11, public comments on non-agenda items. No one signed up. Anyone on non-agenda items? Okay, village clerk's report.
No report today, thank
Okay.
you.
Village trustees, we will start on my left. Trustee Kumar.
Well, I was out at Shakespeare in the Park and saw our trustee here act superbly, so that was a lot of fun.
Have that written down. He acted superbly. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
Superbly.
Don't call me an ass.
Okay, exactly. And so that was a lot of fun to attend. I'm very happy that we're moving, as I said, on to our next steps with our community center. That's a real positive. And that's all I have pretty much for today.
Okay, Trustee Corkery.
I'll just say, echoing, thanks to everyone up here and out there who came to see the play, who braved the pretty extreme weather conditions that we had over the last 2 weekends. I think we're going to be probably moving away from matinees and back towards night shows going forward. So thank you to everyone. We had a wonderful time, and thanks to the Park District employees for making it all possible. It was really good, and I just want to say briefly thank you to everyone who came out to make comment on our agenda items today. It's always appreciate public comment. It can be sort of hard to get people involved and engaged in local government sometimes. So all the people who emailed me, everyone who came out to talk today, thank you for showing up and getting involved.
Okay. Trustee Murphy.
I have no report today, thank you.
Okay. Trustee Patrick.
Hi, thanks. I've got a couple of things. First of all, resident Bob Wagner asked me to share on August 13th from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. is the Ride with District 45 event. Registration is open now for D45's Ride with D45 event. Join us for some community fun to kick off the 22-23 school year. For more details and to register for the free event, visit the site at d45.org/ride with D45. Registration closes on August 10th at 12 p.m. There are very few World War II veterans left with us. There are even fewer World War II veterans who are turning 100 years old, and we have one right here in Villa Park. Mr. Edward Bai, a World War II veteran who served in the Philippine invasion and also spent some time at Pearl Harbor with the United States Coast Guard, is turning 100 years old on August 13th, this Saturday. The family has requested that anybody willing and able to send him either a birthday card or a letter would be very appreciated. You could send your letters to 234 East Harrison Street, Villa Park, Illinois, 60181. And again, Mr. Edward Bai. Also, the family is celebrating by having a parade down his block, a smaller parade that will line up at Albright Middle School on Saturday, August 13th at 1 p.m., just to drive by and celebrate Mr. Bai's 100th birthday. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Just goes there.
Want to thank everybody that came out to give their input on the park project. Regardless of how you feel about it, the community input that we saw tonight was great. I'd love to see more of it. I encourage people to do it. We are your elected officials, so knowing what you want or don't want, or why you want it or why you don't want it, I mean, means everything to us, because we're trying to represent you. So tonight was a good public interaction. Everybody was composed. It didn't get out of hand. I think everybody complied with the 3-minute, desire to get in and out within 3 minutes. So thank you, everybody, for attending, and hopefully we get more resident feedback on future projects and future things that we're doing. Thank you.
Trustee Solano.
Yes, I also would like to say thanks to our residents for attending this evening and voicing their opinions, thoughts, and desires. It was awesome. Secondly, I'd like to thank our police and fire department for National Night Out that we just had. It was a nicely organized event. Had a couple of my 3 grandkids there that enjoyed the hell out of it. Good food, good times, good people. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay, Village President's report. Couple of things I'd like to reiterate. I thought Trustee Corkery did a great job up there on stage. Actually, the whole cast did. It was a really enjoyable show. I was one of the lucky ones. I went on the first night, so it was the first afternoon, so the weather was relatively good that day, so we didn't have to sweat too much, but did a great job. The whole cast did a great job, and crew and everybody, so congratulations. Received a letter from our chief, Rakosnik, our fire chief, that he received from, actually not a resident, but it said, "Dear Chief Rakosnik, on Monday, August 1st, my husband and I found my dear Uncle Peter deceased in his home at 237 Pine. Not knowing what to do, we called 911. I was very upset since he was very important to me. Please know the members of the fire department helped my family a lot during a horrible time. Although heat was brutal that day, everyone was professional and respectful. A kind and respectful sorry for your loss was said by each, and professional services were rendered. The word that comes to mind to me is respectful, and that is so appreciated. Chief Rakosnik, if you and your staff ever wonder if you make a positive difference in the lives of others, please know they truly helped my family a lot on a very sad day. Could you please thank the department for us, my Uncle Peter's family? I'm going to send a copy of this letter to Village Hall as well. Best wishes for all peace and happiness." So thanks to our fire department, and as usual, they do a great job out there and really represent our village well. And I just received another letter today. It's actually dated June 17th from the Village of Roselle. Dear President Kazone, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for the support your Public Works Department provided to the Village of Roselle this past week. I'm grateful for the intergovernmental cooperation that exists in our region to help one another recover from unexpected events like the supercell thunderstorms on Monday, June 13th. As community leaders, we always prepare for the worst-case scenario and hope for the best. As severe weather events become more intense and erratic, our mutual aid to one another becomes more important as we adapt. Best wishes to you and the team of Village of Villa Park. Thank you for helping us clean up. There was David Pileski, the Village of Roselle mayor. So thanks to our Public Works Department, and again, representing our village very well. And I believe that was all that I had. So go to our village manager's report.
All right, just a couple quick items. There was my weekly meeting today with Public Works Director Guerra. We are looking at some options to try and come up with adjustments. I don't want to the Maple area improvement project, in particular on Maple Street between Summit and Illinois, to try and alleviate some of the depth of the swales. Some people use the word gutter, but so to try and make those, try and have those manageable, so they're not too deep for people to mow, and also just to make them generally a bit more attractive and functional. So we are working on some options to improve that. I did attend coffee with the board, and I know that there have been times where it's been desired for the manager to be there, not be there. As you see fit, let me know what your preference is. And then we do have a brief executive session, and I think I can get through it. I think I have a deal that's.
You have a 3-minute window, and that's it. I'm
Is it
going to
3
time you
minutes?
out at 3 minutes.
I think I wagered with somebody $1 if I get us out in 15 minutes or not. As long as it's not the person who I have the wager with,
You haven't gotten a 30-second interference comment, though, so.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
So I would hope to get, I would hope the urge to get out of here is greater than the urge to see me out $1. So
There you go. Okay.
that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. With that, we go to item 16, executive session. Item 16A, pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2, C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. And item 16B, pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2, C11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Do we have a motion for executive session? Trustee Corkery, do we have a second?
A second.
Trustee Solella? We do a voice vote?
No, you don't.
Okay, go ahead. Clerk Konecki, thank you.
Yeah, Trustee Kozar,
Yes.
Trustee Stalella.
Yes.
Trustee Corkery.
Yes.
Trustee Patrick.
Yes.
Trustee Murphy.
Yes.
Trustee Kumar.
Yes.
President Casal.
Yes, and with that, we will adjourn executive session. We will adjourn the meeting out of executive session, so we will not see you till August 22nd. So thank you, thanks all for coming, thanks for watching, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and enjoy last days of summer.
September